Greetings, this is Obi-Wan Kenobi, and I have drifted into the Underworld. The Star Wars Underworld. I have a bad feeling about this.
Here we go. We must go to the lower levels. The Underworld.
You've taken your first step into a larger world.
You're after something.
Ben.
Since I've started the Underworld, I've met so many great friends.
Chris.
I grew up in the 1990s, and mall packaging is nostalgic for me.
Dominic.
What I love most about Star Wars is that it's fun, and it's all-round good times.
So, this is where the fun begins.
May the Force be with us.
This thing really moves!
Whoa! I like this!
I can't believe you came all this way to see me.
Why am I not in the intro? I gotta come up with a snappy line.
That's right. Hannah is still not in the intro, but
Still not in it. Still not involved.
What's up,
Never
Star Wars
change.
fans, and welcome back to the Star Wars Underworld podcast. Yes, we are back after a very, very long hiatus, but it's time, Star Wars fans, to talk about the latest breaking Star Wars news and reviews and all the things. We're going to be sharing our initial impressions of Ahsoka. I know we've been waiting months to talk about it. We're finally get to talk about it. We're also going to be getting caught up in all the biggest stories that we missed during the break. And we got a very special exclusive talk with 4 High Republic authors about Phase 3 of the High Republic. And of course, a mega-sized edition of Ask the SWU. It is going to be a fantastic show. My name is Chris, and joining me is my good friend, Mr. Dominic Jones.
Hello, Chris. Hello, Ben, who is vanished for some reason. Hello, Hannah. Hello, everybody. Oh, it's so good to be back. I think that's the longest we've gone since like 2013 or 2012 without doing a podcast. Was weird. That was strange, but I'm so glad that both the WGA and SAG-AFTRA have gotten the deals they deserve. The actors, the writers, the performers, the people that make these shows are going to get what they deserve. They're going to get what they deserve, and they're going to have the protections they need to continue making great things. And it's in that spirit that we go forward and we get caught up on all those amazing things that we've missed. It's going to be a great show.
An all-around great time.
Yes.
And no, I can definitely tell you, since I was on the first podcast in 2011, we've never gone more than like 3 weeks without podcasting. So
5 months there.
So this is like a 12 year in the making hiatus, a jubilee of sorts or something
like that.
Jubilee.
Also joining us, it is Ben Hart, the Star Wars guy.
Ben Jammin. Ben,
where is he?
Where
are we? What have we got here?
So Benjamin, the Star Wars gentleman.
What year is it?
Who was this bearded madman in a top hat with a lightsaber?
So long, he's grown a beard.
This is a Rumpelstiltskin or something. Rip Van Winkle, I don't remember. A literary thing.
I am old Ben, the Star Wars gentleman, the Star Wars hobo, whatever you call it. And I have been in exile for so long. Some would say I've been a little crazy, but it's okay. I'm keeping it together.
Are you now?
We were supposed to go to Scarif to vacation, not Tatooine. You know everybody ages 3 times as fast on Tatooine. Now we're not in sync.
Nobody told me that.
I mean, I know we discussed sand, but you know.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's funny. Before the hiatus, we spent a lot of time talking about what facial hair Ben should grow, and we had settled on a mustache so he could cosplay as Lonnie from Andor.
Yes.
And instead, he's gone for I don't even know
this is my real hair, by the way. Real hair.
It's real hair. He really hasn't shaved. What have you been doing? What have you been doing with your time, old Ben? What do you do to pass the time?
This is the crossword.
Just pacing mainly.
Pacing.
Not even picketing. He hasn't been like out there in support of the,
What
of
do
the
you think
unions.
you're doing this?
He's just lost
I
his
realized
mind.
The lights, my battery's around my lightsaber now, and I've got nothing.
Oh, life. Oh, it's gone. What a fleeting existence. Wow.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
is this a podcast or something? What do we do?
I don't know.
forgot.
I don't know, President
My memory
Lincoln.
is
I'm not
gone.
really sure. I'm not really sure you can.
It has to go for 2 hours now. You know,
Yeah.
this bit has to go for 2 hours.
Yeah, you're not allowed to get out of this, Ben.
What? This isn't a bit. What do you think? This is a bit? This is me.
Oh, Skull,
This is what I've
7 years
become.
ago,
What age are you?
Brothers brought forth this great podcast.
Ben's gone from an old man to a Muppet over the span of this bit, so I don't really know. Who knows what character he'll be by the
Niagara
end.
Falls.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Oh,
And
nice.
that other voice that you hear and that face to you see, it's Hannah from the Ray side, or Ray from the Hannah side, I think.
That's the latter one. I love it. G'day there. Thank you for I don't know what I'm thanking you, but thank you, everyone. But it's great to be back. Thrilled to be here. And yeah, celebrating the glorious win for the WGA and SAG-AFTRA. Happy days. Happy days.
Happy days indeed. Now, I think over the past several months, we've all envisioned what the return of the show might look like. I don't think we ever envisioned this. And I'm sorry, Ben, but we're just going to do this for just a moment here. We're just going to make sure everybody gets a good look.
Soak it up. Soak up.
I don't know.
That
Just
look.
the way the
Get
mustache,
off my lawn.
just the way the mustache is on him.
It
Just like
fits you perfectly.
it's a perfect like character. But Hannah, I wanted to ask you because I know you had a dream version of the return of this podcast.
I
Want to share that? Did that involve Ben in a blue top hat and a beard?
No, it didn't. No, it didn't. I had a dream. Actually, I remember because I texted you guys like first thing in the morning after I had this dream of us returning. It involved me coming to America. We were gonna do it all in person. I believe it was at Ben's house or Ben's place.
The barbecue
Ben's
restaurant.
Parents, yeah, basically. Ben's parents were royal. I don't know if I added that detail in. They were like the king and queen of like the state.
Which is true.
And Ben was like this prince. Anyway, we all met up.
To me, they're royalty.
We met up and we're like, okay, we like got to do this now that we're all together. And then this happened, right? Did I imagine this? And then we had to go to the zoo. That was the part. We had to, yes. And I think Dom was the main perpetrator, being like, if Hannah's all this way, we've got to take her to the bloody zoo. Like she's got to see it. Forget the podcast.
That famous Mississippi Zoo. That's what everybody goes to Mississippi for. It's for the zoo.
Got to see the pelicans.
And Dom, you're the most passionate about it as well, Tom. You were the most gung-ho. And then we could get to recording this podcast. But we were almost there. But I mean, this is just as good, I guess.
I'm gonna say Ben belongs in a zoo in this character that he's doing. And not even like as one of the animals, just as that weird guy that's walking around going, I think they should let the giraffes into the lion enclosure and just see what happens. And
I thought you were going to be like the tour guide, being like, these are the gorillas, not let's cage fight various animals. What? Whoa.
Either or. Maybe the tour guide wants to cage fight some animals. Who knows?
True.
Why not? Who knows what goes down at the Mississippi Zoo? Oh man, it's so good to be back. It's so good to be back. We should just quickly off the hop here just give everybody a sort of rundown of what the return is going to look like, because we're back, we're doing shows, we're going to keep doing shows weekly. And this week, as Chris laid out off the top, we're going to catch up on some news. We're going to do a little Ahsoka talk, going to answer some questions, and we got the High Republic interview. Starting next week, we are going to be doing deep dives into the Ahsoka episodes. And the way we're going to do this is we're going to do episodes 1 and 2 of Ahsoka next week, episodes 3 and 4 the week after that, episode 5 by itself the following week, then 6 and 7 the week after that, and then we'll do the finale on its own on the week that, if my math is correct, is December 21st, and that will lead us into the holidays. And we haven't really discussed what we're doing for the holidays. I feel like we've all taken a very long holiday here, and maybe we just want to keep rolling through Christmas.
No break.
Or maybe we'll take a little pause around there. But that's the plan, is we're going to do 2 episodes a week for the most part, with a couple of exceptions in there. And we will talk about it as like the series as a whole. We're not going to sit there and go, "Ooh, we're only going to talk about episodes 1 and 2 and not talk about spoilers. Who knows what's going to happen in episode 3?" We're not going to do that. We're just going to talk through the episodes, sort of the way we would do the Clone Wars Strikes Back in the day. And we just lost Sir Benjamin. He just wandered off very
He's off to the zoo.
Well, he's back to his pacing. He's back to his pacing. That's all he's doing. Pacing.
Amazing. So that's the plan for the return. So nice to be back. So nice to be chatting with these 3, and so nice to be chatting with all of you who are listening live and all of you who are listening after the fact as well. And we will say, for Ask the SWU, there's still time to get comments in. Super chats is the main way to do that live, but if you leave a good enough comment, we're just feeling generous this week. We'll just do it for free. We'll just include it.
Yeah, screw it.
Just because. But with that, Chris, I'll throw it back over to you. Do you remember how to do plugs?
Yes, I do. I read the notes where it says plugs and say all the things that it says.
Wow.
And then also hit banners that talk about things. All right, so we're on YouTube, and that means that if you're not subscribed, make sure you punch that subscribe button, Chewy. And like Dom just mentioned, you can super chat with us to guarantee that your comment is read on the show. If you're watching later or you're listening and you still want to support us financially, but you can't make our live shows, there is a way to do that, and that is by becoming a channel member. Be part of our glorious TK squad over here at the Star Wars Underworld Network. And of course, don't forget, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Google Play or Spotify, you can subscribe and you can leave a review over there, and that would be awesome. And then, while we've been taking a break on YouTube, our community has not been taking a break over on the Star Wars Underworld Network Discord. We've had a lot of fun over there. Special thanks to Ben and Joel for spearheading the engagement over there over the past few months. So we got game nights, movie nights, just kind of discussions where we just talk about Star Wars or whatever. There's so many cool things going on the Star Wars Underworld Network Discord. So definitely check that out. There'll be a link in the description of this video to join our Discord if you haven't. And if you haven't logged in a while, turn on those notifications so you can see when there's stuff happening over there. And of course, you can follow us at the SWU on various social media. And if you're wondering where our website went, it's StarWarsUnderworld.net now.
Yeah. And
really?
the Star Wars Underworld.net that you go to may not be the one that is there in like a couple months. So enjoy this one while it lasts, because that's something interesting that happened over the break that we're not going to talk about. But the website changed because of reasons.
Also, we want to remind everybody about all the other shows on the Star Wars Underworld Network. While we've been taking a break, there's been a lot of other content happening. So make sure you check out Hannah's show, The Raeside, over on her channel, The Raeside. I'm James Bond.
Look at my Chiari Monday head.
Sean Connery today. And of course, Ion Cannon's on this channel with Joel and Matthew, and then Tales from Beyond the Galaxy is over there on Twitch. So make sure you check out all that.
And another new show,
That's
also
right.
on this channel, Tractor Beam with Matthew and Chris Star Raptor Abbott, where they break down the week's comics and publishing stories.
I'm trying to make the sound of a tractor beam, by the way. I'm not just like...
So big shout out to those guys as well.
Awesome. And I think that's all the plugs. I think
so.
I think unless there's any can we expect a new hot off the press.
Yeah,
All about SAG and the
soon.
strike and
Soon, someday,
Awesome.
someday soon. Someday soon. All right, let's get into it. There was a whole Star Wars series that's come and gone in the time that we've been away.
So wild.
It's insane that we did not do a single episode covering Ahsoka, but we'll more than make up for that in the coming weeks. And although we're going to do deep dives in the weeks to come, as I laid out, we did want to give some initial impressions on the series, Ahsoka. And then it has been 5 months. So of course we're going to throw it to you first. Take it away, the time-traveling Ben Hart, the Star Wars guy, who somehow de-aged himself using Lucasfilm digital technologies in the last, I'm going to say 3 minutes since you wandered off. Take it away, Ben. What'd you think of Ahsoka?
Oh, he's got some sort of difficulty to sort out. For audio viewers, he's puzzled. He's frantically looking around. He's scrounging for something to fix his problem. He's still on mute. He's looking more concerned the more I explain his predicament. He's reaching over to touch something on the computer. The computer.
Ben, I think I think you mute yourself on StreamYard.
He's wondering.
Check the thing. Check the bar at the bottom.
He's looking back at the screen. He's even got a face. I don't think he's not even recognizing we're saying anything, I believe.
Yeah, this
is it doesn't let me override a mute.
This is how you know it's been a long time since we've done one of these podcasts, because apparently we've forgotten how the technology works. So Ben, you know what? Yeah. You've lost your ability to go first.
No. What?
Hannah, over to you.
Yes. Oh,
take it away.
Oh, no, he's back. Now that's it. That's it. You had to say that.
Yeah. Ben, speak.
Do you read us, Ben?
Can you echo 3 to echo 7?
No, I feel like Ben's in another universe.
He's mumbling something to himself, but he's back on mute. I'm gonna jump in here.
Ben went to the world between worlds. That's where he went.
All right, that's where we go. I will jump in here with my overall thoughts of Ahsoka. God, I haven't done this such a long time. Ahsoka.
This sounds like a commercial for the show. I swear I saw this on TV. Just a bunch of people going, Ahsoka!
Yeah, pretty much. What an experience this show was. The thing that I when I think about this show, this first season, I just feel it was an experience. There was a range of emotions for me, and so much nostalgia for me personally, just being so connected to this character for so long and getting to spend so much time with her on screen was just, I was going to say on camera, on screen, was just so amazing. It was just so amazing. Like critical views aside, it was just such an amazing experience to see this show in its full. There's been a lot of excitement for it. I mean, the absolute wonderful hysteria there was around that Ahsoka trailer dropping in Star Wars Celebration in London was amazing. And that excitement just was carried on to when this show was dropping. It was such a fun time. And the show itself, I was very impressed by. There was a lot of things that just was so cohesive and worked so well together and was just made it such a wonderful watch. I think the effects were really fantastic. A lot of the visuals, a lot of the planets, I just thought were really the best we've seen in Star Wars TV shows. And I was really impressed with that. And the story was one that was very interesting. I think there was some fantastic elements and directions in it. But I do have some things I wouldn't say I would be critical of, but just things I could have seen they do more with. I think they could have done a lot more with the show. But overall, it was just I really enjoyed the show. It was fun to watch. I really, really enjoyed watching it. I've got high things to say about it. So that's my overall.
Nice. Chris, what about yourself?
So It was an interesting ride for me because something happened that kind of doesn't tend to happen with Star Wars shows, which is it actually just got better and better and better for me. A lot of times I'm used to it like starting really good and then not being good or having like a weird lull in the middle or like something like that. But for this show, it actually the first 2 episodes, I was like, okay, this is like it's okay, but like it's not the best Star Wars show I've ever seen. Like it's kind of moving a little slow and pacing seems a little weird, and it just felt weird to me. But then right around the middle of the season, I started noticing, okay, they're kind of tightening this up. Like the writing seems a little bit cleaner, the pacing's cleaner. That there's more interesting stuff being revealed and happening. And then by the time that they got towards the end of the show, I was just so pumped and so excited for every episode when it was coming out, and I was very very entertained by the last few episodes. I thought they were absolutely amazing, and the finale, the last episode, I thought was very, very well executed. So in general, overall, I thought it was a great show, and I'm very hopeful that we do at some point do get another season to that, because it definitely was. I love how I think that my favorite thing about it was that even though it had a contained story, it very much was set up for a much larger overarching story. And I like when shows do that because then you kind of know what to expect going into season 2. You don't have to like come up with another story. Like a lot of shows, it's like the whole story is season 1 and they make it so it works as one season. And then if it's successful and you get a season 2, sometimes it's not as good because it's like not the same momentum, not the same thing. I loved how the entire season was really a setup season for whatever's going to come next. And I really like that. So I think it's fantastic that they were able to make it a great show and really entertaining, but also not give us everything in the first season that they could give us. And I thought that was really cool. And that's why I kind of feel more positively about it than some of the other shows that have come out. I think it's one of the better ones.
Yeah, it knew what it was and knew what it was trying to do. I think it did, and it was sort of freed up of the pressure of being a new show, because it is a new show, but it isn't. It's a continuation of The Mandalorian and everything that's going on in those other shows. And I mean, even right from the first episode, there's a lot's been said about like, do you have to watch this? Do you have to watch that to make sense of the series? I think the only like really required viewing is The Mandalorian season 2, episode 5. Like that Ahsoka episode, The Jedi. I think that episode is kind of the prologue for this series, and in its it was very much a backdoor pilot for this show. So I think it's the show was freed of that and thus was able to just kind of be its own thing. It understood its place as laying the groundwork for other shows like The Mandalorian, like Skeleton Crew, as well as a potential second season and that eventual movie that Dave Filoni is going to make. For me, I really did love the show. I really, really did love the show. That said, because this is our return episode, I'm only going to focus on the positives for today. But I have some things we're gonna have to discuss in episode in the episodes to come. And there is one thing I've already had a lengthy debate with a friend of the show about in episode 5 that I'm looking forward to bringing that to this and seeing where everybody comes down on it. But overall, the show was so much fun. And, we can sit here and pontificate on, did the general audience understand it? Could the general audience follow it? For the purposes of this conversation, I don't care. I don't give a flying fadoo. I liked it. I enjoyed it. I liked the way it continued those stories that I've loved for years and that we've all loved for years. And that's all I care about in this moment, is how much fun that was. Continuing Rebels, continuing the Clone Wars, continuing the Mandalorian. It was just terrific. And I was really happy that Sabine was Force sensitive. Really, really happy. I love what that means, and I'm so excited to get into that as we go forward. But we're still waiting on Ben to sort out his computer. He texted us to say he's having technical difficulties and we'll need a few minutes. But we'll sort of forge forward and keep talking about Ahsoka. We'll go around the table again here, and I want to hear something from the series that stood out to you, a moment, a character, something else, good or bad. Chris, you seem excited. Let's go right to you.
The casting for Ezra. I could not believe how good it was.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. The second I saw him, I'm like, that's Ezra. Like a lot of the live action Star Wars, it takes me a moment. I got to kind of trick myself. Like Rosario Dawson as Ahsoka, I got to like tell myself, yeah, that's Ahsoka. That's actually Eckstein. That's Ahsoka. Yeah, it's the same person. Because, but like, oh man, when I saw him, I'm just like, yeah, that's Ezra. Like I believed it right away. Like he did such a good job. I'm gonna say his name right. Ayman Esfandi am I saying it right?
Esfandi, yeah.
Esfandi, yeah. He did good. He did so great. And I know there was that whole thing about that other guy, Aladdin.
Yeah.
Potentially being him, and maybe he
yeah,
was done good too. I thought,
yeah.
but I get why they went with Mr. Esfandi because that was good. So every second that Ezra was on screen, I loved him, and that is something to say because as if you go back to our Live from the Fall episodes, you know that sometimes he's a little bit punchable. But oh man, so that was probably the biggest thing for me was just loving Ezra and loving the casting.
Nice. Hannah, what about you?
My thing, I think they could have fumbled the bag with Hayden Christensen coming back so hard. That's a big name. It's a big character. Yes, we got him back in Kenobi, but you know, he was as Vader. That's like a bit more easy to handle. They didn't do it as deeply in Kenobi, but Hayden as this a specific period of Anakin could have gone so wrong. They could have gotten it so wrong, not done it any justice. They could have done it just not well. And I think they did the absolute best they could with it. In like that's not in a condescending way, as in like it. I can't say, oh, they should have done this differently with him. I think all the stuff with Anakin was perfect. I think it was the right amount. I think it was the right element and the right time. It wasn't overdone. It wasn't underdone. It was perfect. I think they really nailed the Hayden stuff.
I agree.
Yeah.
That's my takeaway.
I agree.
Yeah.
It was so great seeing him back and the way he fell into the Clone Wars scenes and just the Ahsoka relationship. You know, that's something that could have been a challenge for, you know, someone who played this part, 15, almost 20, over 20 years ago, if we go with Attack of the Clones. Like it's been a long time since this dude last played the role. And you know, there were all these other stories, this whole other part of Anakin's story that wasn't part of Hayden's experience. And yet he was able to just fall into it. And that speaks to him as the quality of him as an actor. I think it's also a testament. I think him and Rosario Dawson had worked together previously. That allowed them to just sort of have a little bit of history there. But also Ariana Greenblatt, who played young Ahsoka.
Yeah, she was amazing.
So good. And the two of them, terrific together. Yeah, just amazing stuff.
Just about her real quick. The amount of detail that she spent into changing the way that like she talked and like her posture to match different versions of Ahsoka in the Clone Wars at different ages. That was incredible. Like that's details. Like there was so much attention to detail in this show, and that was one of them. Is like because you could easily like just show up in costume, do the stuff. Like no one would probably say anything, but she like spent time like researching exactly how to appear as the Ahsoka at various ages based on what we've seen on screen with her before, which was absolutely incredible.
For sure. But for me, the standout I want to emphasize is the New Republic storyline. I absolutely adored this. I loved having Mon Mothma back. I loved having Carson Teva back. I loved what we got from Hera in this story. Kazuda Ziono's father.
Yes.
Love any sort of resistance references we can get in there.
Even I was like, yeah,
yeah.
yeah, Kaz's dad.
Yeah, I loved him, but I loved how much of a prick he was, and all of it culminating with C-3PO wandering into the trial of Hera Syndulla with Mon Mothma as like, you know, judge, jury, and executioner on this thing. I loved that so much. I loved the look at the New Republic that we got in Mando season 3. I still think that's my favorite episode, is the Pershing and Elia Kane go on an adventure on Coruscant. I think that's still my favorite episode of that season. And this sort of showed a different side of it, but continued to play with those same themes. And that's where, you know, we'll talk a lot in the weeks and months to come about Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni, but that's where having them be so hands-on across all of the series really paid off. Is that this felt like a continuation of that, even though it really was exploring a different part of the New Republic and the New Republic experience. So I thought that was just terrific. It helped that Paul Sun Young was so prominent in it. I will always support anything that man does. And I will just quickly tell a story that that Chris, you reminded me of, because you were talking about Ezra. Every year for the last 2 years, Paul puts on a Halloween party in Toronto, and it's for charity, and he comes out and he's just there hanging out. And you may have seen the picture I had last year where he was in costume as Carson Teva, just hanging out with everybody. And he was there again. He wasn't in costume as Carson Teva this year because of the strikes. He was in costume and briefly in character as Appa from Kim's Convenience the whole time, which is his other most famous role. But he's there, and I was there. Matthew from Iron Cannon was there. Our friend Kareem was there, and Kareem was dressed as Ezra, and he had just put together this like Ezra cosplay that day. And Paul comes up to him and is like, "Yeah, we need to take a picture right now, and I'm going to text it to Dave Filoni." I was like,
"Oh my god."
Oh, one of our friends is in Dave Filoni's phone now. Dave Filoni could be scrolling through his text messages, and there's Kareem. So what a moment. What a good moment. Still waiting on the return of Ben Hart, the Star Wars guy. Don't know where he is. Probably falling through another time loop. So we'll keep
still pacing.
We'll keep talking Ahsoka. We talked about a standout moment. What's something else? Like we're just gonna list things that we're excited about. What's something else that you've wanted to talk about on this show, but haven't been able to yet? Hannah, you look deep in thought.
Yeah. About are you talking about Ahsoka specifically?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, freaking yeah. Come on. Come on, guys. Come on. Yeah. Oh, bloody oath. Lars Mikkelsen was I want to marry that man. Oh my god, he's so good. He's so freaking good. What a wonderful Thrawn. I don't accept any criticism about him. I think he looked perfect. I love he's enjoyed his life in this other
exile.
Yes, in exile.
Peridia.
He's relaxed a little. But I think that's great. And I just thought his performance was outstanding. I think it was the best choice that they stuck with the voice actor. They stuck with Mars. I always do that. Mars Wilkinson.
That's combining him and his brother. Mads and Lars become Mars.
Yeah, true. Oh, Mars Wilkinson.
I'm more a fan of lads.
Good to be back.
Yeah, it's great to be back. I just think they couldn't have had anyone else doing that voice and being it in live action. So I just thought he was just so fantastic to me. I think I had actually more of a physical reaction to him coming on screen than Hayden, as much as it was incredible. Oh no, actually no, I take that back. It was pretty equal, actually. But I was pretty crazy for Hayden. But Thrawn was just perfect to me.
I've got to say that because we had seen Hayden in Obi-Wan, you know, it wasn't as big a reaction if it would be the first time seeing him back. So I think seeing Thrawn in live action, that was a bit more for me.
Yes.
And I loved the introduction of him. Like, I think the scene where he first appeared was absolutely incredible. Like that music, that score was so great. It was one of the best like intro character scenes
and
ever.
all the dudes
Oh my gosh. It was so great.
Like,
it was so well done. And I just think, that whole thing with Thrawn and the way that he is and how they were able to portray him, you know, being dangerous, losing but not losing, half losing, a good kind of first skirmish was good, because it doesn't take anything away from him, but then it doesn't take any away from the protagonist either. So I thought the writing was really brilliant, with a good way to introduce him in a way like not like how the Inquisitor, for instance, was introduced in the season 1 of Rebels, where he's dead. Like, I thought that it was done so well. And then just this concept of him commanding an army of the undead was so cool. So cool.
I thought you were gonna say not like the Inquisitor and Obi-Wan Kenobi, because he actually looks good.
Say that too. Hey, zinger.
Yeah. I mean, that's gonna be the interesting challenge for Thrawn, the character, over the next few series. Is he needs for him to be the big bad, the big threat over all of this, up to, including, and potentially beyond that Dave Filoni movie. He's got to get some wins. He's got to kick some ass. He's got to put the fear of the dark side of the Force into our heroes.
Lack of death in the show. Surprising lack of death.
And Thrawn on Rebels, I thought really he did work. He was a very, very good villain on there, but he still lost every time. And it was literally a Deus Ex Machina. It was literally an act of God in season 3 with the Bendu. But you know, he still lost a lot. And I need to see him win. And this was a good first victory. I want to see in season 4 of Mando, season 2 of this, Skeleton Crew, whatever else they may cook up. I want to see him wreck shop and make it so that he feels like the ultimate baddie we know he can and should be.
There are a lot of characters alive right now in this Mandoverse Plus that are not alive come Force Awakens. Something's gotta give at some point. They can't just keep saying people go to other galaxies and stuff. like people turn into birds. I don't know what it's like somebody's got there's too many characters right now. There's too many characters for them not to be in the Force Awakens. Otherwise, we're gonna end up with the same thing with Revenge of the Sith and the Clone Wars, where we're like, oh, well, where were they?
Yeah, what were they up to?
Where was Ahsoka? Where was Rex? What's going on?
Yeah, you can only Siege of Mandalore things so many times. It becomes...
are we gonna get a Siege of Lothal take 2? I don't know.
Yeah. Chris, what's something else? What's something else that you've been dying to talk about?
It was great having David Tennant continuing to expand his role into Star Wars. He is obviously an amazing actor from, Doctor Who and Broadchurch and lots of other great stuff. Jessica Jones, amazing Jessica Jones. So it's cool having Hu Yang as such a central character in this show. One of my favorite characters that was a very minor character from the Clone Wars. So great choice to bring him back. And David did a great job portraying him, giving him a lot of personality. I mean, he's got more personality than some non-droids. So amazing character.
Yeah, I really am looking forward to Disney Gallery Ahsoka, because I want to know how they did Huang on this.
Yes,
because he, more than any droid we've ever seen in Star Wars, and this is going to sound really stupid to say, felt like a robot. he felt like it was just a thing on set that was moving like digitally. It didn't feel like there was an actor in the suit. And even you know, you compare Huang to some of the contemporary droids we've gotten, like K2 or L3, where you had Alan Tudyk or Phoebe Waller-Bridge in a mocap suit, like moving around in a very human way, but then they animate them to make them into robots. Or even if you compare them to, you know, C-3PO and R2-D2 in the original Star Wars movies, where, you know, Anthony Daniels and Kenny Baker are in those suits, making them move and giving them such personality. It felt to me like they might have just built this robot, had it on set, and had a bunch of dudes off to the side with remote controls, moving it around. And then, you know, David came in and did his thing in the audio booth. So I'm really curious to see how they did it. Or was there a Huang on set at all? Was he all digital? But there was something about him that felt very robotic, and it was very interesting to me. And you go back and you look at Huang on the Clone Wars, and I did that. Watch some clips. He moves much more in a K2 L3 kind of way on that show, where he feels like a human or a living thing more so than a like a Jetsons robot kind of thing. But on this show, he felt very robotic, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I kind of liked it. I thought it was kind of neat. But I'm very, very curious for Disney Gallery Ahsoka to come out and show us how they did it. Of course, it being Disney Gallery, they probably won't show us anything we actually want to see, so they won't mention it in the slightest.
We're just gonna talk about things at a table.
Yeah. I'll throw in the casting of Sabine. This was casting, some of the earliest casting we knew about for this series, going way back to Celebration Anaheim in 2022. And so, you know, a lot of pressure on Natasha Liu Bordizzo, and I thought she delivered. I thought she was tough when she needed to be tough, vulnerable when she needed to be vulnerable. She was a badass in the action scenes, and I felt like she really captured who Sabine is, who Sabine was, and who Sabine is going to be. And yeah, I'm excited to see more. I'm excited to see where this goes. I think, do we have the Star Wars guy?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can.
Yay.
We can.
So,
and
for the record, my computer is just sitting right over here now. It's been working fine for 5 months. 10 minutes into the podcast, it decides I'm done. I'm no more podcasting for you. So yeah, that's my night. Yeah, I'm still freaking getting hairs out of my mouth, damn it.
Wow.
Well,
Ben,
this has been a night.
In honor of what you've just been through, and in honor of the 5 months we've missed, there is literally only one thing that can be said and done. Ben Hart, the Star Wars guy.
Yes.
Ben Hart, the Star Wars guy.
Star Wars rules. This is momentous. This is exciting. Why, hello there, Ben.
Ben Hart, the Star Wars guy.
He is the founder of the Star Wars Underworld, Mr. Ben Hart. How's it going, everybody?
Oh man, we gotta change how we do that so that everybody can see Ben and Hannah dancing their way through the.
About to say that.
Yes, you do.
Because you guys missed a show. You missed a show.
Oh yeah.
So Ben, we've just been talking about Ahsoka, and
have you now? I had no idea.
I don't think you ever really have anything that you want to say about it, so we'll just move on. Get as close as you can to the whatever you're using as a microphone right now.
Is this better?
No, literally, it made no difference.
Dude, it must be another microphone.
I gotta say, Ben, something you're plugged into something else.
This is the best I can do. This is Gus. You're gonna get tonight.
Okay,
if you want me, you better take me as is. Okay, you better. I'm sorry.
That's
Stay right there.
That's
Stay
the
right
bio
there.
on his dating profile as well.
I was gonna say that
If you want me,
you can hear me.
take me.
That's what matters to me.
Okay, lean in like you were there and tell us, what did you think of Ahsoka? Yeah,
Is
get
this
nice and
close
close.
enough? Is this close
Yeah,
enough?
Perfect. What'd you think? This is your initial impression.
Okay, so I'm so discombobulated. I have to finally get into the groove here because I have so much to say. Yes, like all of you, I've been sitting on a hell of a lot of thoughts about this particular show. And I feel like I need to start kind of with my journey through the show because I will say, the first couple episodes did not grab me. Really, I was not digging the show for the first week. I was really like, I'm not sure about this. And it was of various things. A lot of people have expressed opinions that I'm like, okay, I wasn't crazy. There's some stuff going on there that maybe I wasn't, I saw something coming there, and just pacing issues and whatever else. It wasn't like it was bad. It was just different. Like the way certain scenes were edited, or scenes that were like, oh, it's like Ahsoka says something and beat, and like they'll wait and they stare at each other for a second, and then there's another beat, and then Sabine says something, and it was just a different pacing than what, like, again, it was similar to my Andor experience, which is like, I just have to get used to this. So it was that first week, those first 2 episodes, I was like, I don't know how I feel about this. And then getting into it's funny, immediately the third episode was like, okay, this is it. I'm feeling this. From the first scene, it pulled me in. And pretty much from then on, it really only got better. I think every episode for me is better than the last, maybe except for the finale. I think the finale, for me, there's some issues and stuff that, again, people have expressed those opinions ad nauseum online, but I'll get into them at some point. Some things that I don't think could have maybe pulled it home a little bit better. I love the show, and I think ultimately it comes down to, I think where I've landed with this is like, okay, Andor is still number 1 for me, 100%. But Ahsoka is a close second, a very close second, because Ahsoka has the things that I wanted from Andor. Andor was like, this is great. The production value is phenomenal. The writing is phenomenal. But it's not Star Wars-y enough for me. It's not fantastical enough for me. Ahsoka was the right amount of, like really wild, high fantasy that I think has been missing in a lot of Star Wars. We forget, Star Wars is not sci-fi, and it's not all fantasy either, but it's heavier on the fantasy a lot of times. And I think this show excelled at that. Obviously, as with any show, it's not perfect. I have some likes and some gripes. I think it's some, I think there's some things you were just talking about Thrawn. Yes, I heard that part. Thrawn was phenomenal. I agree. Lars Mikkelsen nailed it. Like, absolutely phenomenal. But like overall, I'm like, did they establish him as the peak villain? Did they actually there was a lot of telling of Thrawn's a big threat. Thrawn's coming, all this stuff. But then did they actually pay that off? I'm not so sure. I'm not sure if you just watch Ahsoka, you get the feeling that, oh, Thrawn's a big deal. Thrawn's a big threat. I'm not sure you're going to get that. But maybe that's not what the show's about. I don't know. But, obviously this is setting something up. We can at least assume there will be another season of something, because with that ending, but we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah. It's gonna be an interesting wait. It's gonna be if there is a second season, it's gonna be a long way away. Mando 4, probably not next year. I think Skeleton Crew is gonna be our next foray into the Mandoverse. But what's that going to be like? How is that going to be different? How's that going to continue what we've seen in this show, and how might it continue what we've seen in other shows. So it's there's it's they left us in quite an interesting place, and the whole industry being off work for somewhere between 5 and 7 months doesn't it means we may not get our answers for a long period of time, but that's okay. That's why we have this podcast. That's why there are many other podcasts and YouTube channels and the like out there to speculate away and come up with insane theories and just have fun, fill in the time. And, there'll be other shows, Andor, Acolyte, Bad Batch, all that stuff to keep us satiated until the return of Ahsoka and the Mandoverse. But we will return to Ahsoka and the Mandoverse, I'm sure, during our Ask the SWU segment. And we will return to it again in the weeks to come as we break down these episodes. But for now, let's catch up on some of the news that we've missed. And we'll start with a big shakeup to the Lando series / movie / I'm not even sure what is going on with this thing anymore.
It's a video game now. Do you hear?
Choose your own adventure novel. This story had a lot of twists and turns to it, but basically the Lando series is now the Lando movie. It's now being written by Donald Glover, he who played Lando in Solo: A Star Wars Story, and his brother and frequent collaborator, Stephen Glover. This was first broken in late July by Above the Line. They reported that the Glovers were replacing Justin Simien, who was originally announced as the showrunner for this series. Now, here's where things take a bit of a turn. Literally the same day that the Above the Line report comes out that Donald and Stephen are taking over the series, an interview with Justin Simien is released in Hollywood Reporter, where he's asked about it, and he says this: "I am attached, I think, but I don't really know. The last thing I was told was that they loved it, but they needed to put a pin in it until they could figure out everybody's availability." After the story breaks, Justin Simien goes onto his Instagram story and posts this. He posts a screenshot of the news, of the headline that Donald Glover and Stephen Glover are taking over writing the Lando series. And he posts with, "This is me finding out right now." Now he followed that up by, having some praise for Donald. He says, "Donald is a national treasure. Glad he and Stephen get to carry the character forward. Can't wait to see rooting for everybody black." But that's how Justin Simien found out he was no longer working on Lando, which is not a great look for Disney, especially at a time when they weren't having a lot of great looks all through the strike negotiations. To follow that up, at this point, everybody was still thinking it was a series. But in September, Stephen Glover goes on the Pablo Torres Finds Out podcast and reveals that it's not a series at all. It's a movie. He says it's not even a show. The idea now is to do a movie. Right now, because of the strike, it's kind of like telephone, all the information. Wow. So we went from the Lando series developed by Justin Simien to the Lando series developed by Donald and Stephen Glover to the Lando movie written by Donald and Stephen Glover. Talk about your roller coaster of a story. But how do we feel about the Glovers taking over Lando and the move from a series to a movie?
As long as it happens, that's all I care about. But we have great Star Wars films, we have great Star Wars TV shows. It can be either. And I just hope it happens. A lot of things that I've seen, a lot of changes like this tend to disappear. So, ask me when it comes out.
Yeah.
A movie sounds closer, perhaps, to what they were planning to begin with the whole like Han Solo trilogy they were apparently planning.
That's true.
So, and I've always, because you always have the old, make Solo 2 happen, all that kind of stuff, which I fully support. But my vision for Solo 2 was always like, it may be a Han Solo movie, maybe a Lando movie, maybe a Kira movie. It could be literally anything, just anything that would kind of continue that story and take any of those characters. You know, it's funny that a Han Solo movie gave us probably one of the best ensembles of this new era. So like continuing that in some way anyway would be fantastic. I think Donald Glover, you know, I think that's really sucks at what happened to Justin Simeon, because I would love to have seen what he was doing. I know this stuff happens. This is Hollywood. Writers and creators and showrunners, they come in and out and stuff like this. It happens. The system is brutal and it doesn't care about anybody's feelings, and that really sucks what happened to him. But deal with what we're dealing with right now. I think we all can have, I think it's cool that Donald Glover is taking the utmost, care in this and taking it forward, because he is a brilliant creator all his own. He's not just a great actor. He's so multi-talented. It's ridiculous. So if he's helming this and his brother, I would give me a TV series, movie, whatever you want.
Mm-hmm. The Glovers being involved, that's like no surprise to me. It's, if anything, it's more of a surprise that they weren't involved from the beginning. Like I remember when they announced the Lando series, like there was no casting attached to it. They just said it's happening. And I remember thinking that's kind of weird that they wouldn't announce like, oh, we're doing the Lando series with Donald Glover, or for that matter, Billy D. Williams. So I do wonder if, getting Donald on board, it may have been contingent on giving him a little bit more creative control on this series. And think about what his other Star Wars experience was. It was Solo, one of the most bonkers productions in history. So maybe for him, it's like, if I'm going to play this character, I want to have some say in the story that we're telling. I want to be directly involved. I want to write the damn thing with my brother. And so maybe that's where maybe that's how we wound up here. Switching it from a show to a movie is actually really interesting to me, because I wonder if this is indicative of a shift in the mindset at Disney and Lucasfilm. Because, when Star Wars came back, it was movies, movies, movies. Then when it came time for Disney Plus to launch, it was series, series, series. And we've seen kind of the scaling back of streaming across the board. That was for Disney, that was a Chapek thing. He really wanted to push Disney Plus. And I don't think Disney Plus has been as successful as they hoped it would be. Not to say it hasn't been a massive success and made them, just shit tons of money. But I'm sure they haven't made quite as much money because, they can never have enough. And now that Iger is back in the fray, he always struck me as being more movie focused. I think he wanted to get Disney Plus up and running as part of his legacy when he was quitting the first time, but he strikes me as a movie guy. And I think he's looking at, the returns on Disney Plus, and then he's looking at the returns of the Star Wars movies he did make. Recall that 4 out of 5 of them made over $1 billion, including Rogue One. That was a movie based on characters nobody had heard of, and including The Rise of Skywalker, which is, The Rise of Skywalker. So things don't change here.
The best.
Did you miss us, guy? Did you miss us?
That's a word. But so they made just a ton of money, and you may be looking at this summer with Barbenheimer and how much money there is still to be made at the box office if you can entice people to go. And maybe he's thinking, what, if these guys think they have a better shot at making a success as a movie, then let's make it as a freaking movie.
I mean, listen, getting a Star Wars movie made is like throwing an entire pizza pie up and then hoping it sticks on the ceiling at this point. It will happen, but you've got to throw a lot of pies up there before one of them actually sticks. And I think that's where I see it kind of almost as a frustration thing. Like, wow, we got to have like 10,000 movie projects in the works because these things are just not working. And there has not been a Star Wars movie in 4 years now, and it wouldn't be surprising if there isn't one in the next 4 years at this rate. So like I think that might be you compare that to Disney Plus, and it's like there's so many series and they're so good. Like there's only been a couple series that have been announced that didn't come through to fruition. And it's a very much better track record for getting the series produced and released than movies. So I could just see it as simple as, well, we don't need any more Star Wars content on Disney Plus. We already have a plan. There's already so many things, and we have a good plan with the Marvel shows and other shows on there too. So, but the theaters are a little bit lacking, so we need some more stuff over there, and I could see that being a thing. But the real big question for me, going back to what we were talking about earlier about it being closer to that original plan, is that original Solo trilogy that was planned going to end up looking like a Han movie, a Lando movie, and then I don't know, like a Kira movie or something like that, and then they end up getting the trilogy anyway? Like, will this movie focus very much just on Lando, or will this more be like there will be the other characters too, and it will feel like a natural sequel to Han Solo and not just like a spin-off of something else and or its own thing? Like, that's very curious. There's so many directions that they could go in. I mean, will Darth Maul be the villain of this movie or not? Another really big question.
I wonder if they almost go the Mandoverse route, and you do the relationship between the Lando movie and Solo is akin to the Book of Boba Fett and the Mandalorian. And then you do the Kira show, and then you do another movie set in that sort of underbelly thing, and then all of a sudden you do the big climactic event where everybody takes down Darth Maul and Crimson Dawn.
That would be awesome. I would be so excited if they did that. Please do that.
Yeah 100%. I think it is very evident, I think, with the pattern of things, who's been in charge at Disney and what media we have gotten. And I think you're right on the money there, Dom, when you were talking about the movies. Then we had this massive, let's drop all the eggs in the basket for this series. Let's make 74 Star Wars series in a year. That was the great plan. Worked well.
No notes.
More than half have been anyway. It's another conversation. And I do feel that emphasis of, hey, let's go back to theaters. Let's go back to cinema. Let's see what we can make for a single movie. And obviously we can infer that emphasis from Celebration just this year. It was like I think it was like about a week or so out, and it's like, hey, rumor is they're gonna announce a bunch of movies. And everyone's like, oh, okay, all right, there's a few stories. And then they freaking march out. Old mate. Actually, Ben looked like old mate Mangold. And then
oh my god, we have to get Ben to cosplay as James Mangold at the next celebration.
100%.
Oh my god,
yeah,
incredible.
And I actually really like her as a director, but I forget her name every time. For the Rey movie, and
Charmin Obaid-Chinoy,
Chinoy, yeah, there we go. And was it Daisy that came out as well? Who else came out? Dave or something, yeah.
Dave and Daisy.
And it was
D&D.
and that was D&D. That was their big ticket. That was this is our big statement. We're going back to cinema. We're going back to theaters with these movies, assuming they're releasing those in theaters, which would be weird if they didn't. And so, I totally agree. I think that shift is heading back toward movies, and I think and I hope that they find that balance. I think The Mandalorian, obviously, the first 2 seasons. I should include 3. I should be nice and include 3. Great show, popular to the general audience. Anyone can kind of flick it on. It was quite a big success for the Star Wars brand. They really need to find that balance of, let's have some great action adventure movies hitting the screens every 2-3 years for Star Wars, and have a TV show that deeper Star Wars fans can love at the same time. I think that should really be the balance of Star Wars media between shows and movies. And I think that is the flaw and is the mistake they've done of, let's make 74 shows in 2 years. Like, that's the mistake. So I'm hoping this Lando news has as much weight to show that is where Disney's head is at, is let's go back to theater, because I want that to happen.
Yeah, me too.
That's my take. That's my take.
Yeah, 100%. Sticking with Lando, we're not going to spend too much time on this story, but I did want to mention it. Wanted to shout out Mr. Billy D. Williams, who announced that his autobiography is coming out next year. It's called "What Have We Here?" It's great.
Should we talk about when he tweeted this and the absolute meltdown that happened for about 24 hours?
Oh my
Did anyone
god,
else
I remember that.
Everyone's like, "Oh my god, he's the Lando show. He's gonna be the voiceover. It's gonna come out next week. Oh my god, everything's happening." Everyone freaked out. Then he's like, "I wrote a book," and everyone's like, "Oh," but it's Billy D, so you have to be like, "That's really good.
Yeah,
that's really good." We didn't hike our expectations.
I completely missed the build up to this, so I'm just excited. I want to read Billy D's book. This is a man who's lived a life. One of the very first Star Wars podcasts that I ever listened to, that I don't think exists anymore, did a segment called the Billy D Quote of the Week. This man has had a whole like career beyond just Lando that I feel like is going to be wild to read about. And then, of course, I'm sure he's going to have some great Lando stories in there. So, What Have We Here? By Billy D. Williams, hits shelves February 13th, 2024.
And if you get one of the first 1,000 copies, you get a Colt 45 with the book. And then there's a whole section at the end just of poetry for the last 50 pages.
One of the very first conventions I ever went to was Billy D was one of the big guests there. And he, during his panel, did a poetry reading. Yes. And he had like a dude on a guitar and another dude with like some drums that just played along with him while he read this poetry. It was incredible. It was like one of the wildest things I've ever seen at a convention. And I adored it. And
this is going to be the best book tour since Carrie Fisher's book tour.
Oh man, the Billy D book tour.
Yes.
Let's go. Oh, this is gonna be great. So good. All right. We've talked about a Star Wars movie that we are hoping will happen. Let's talk about some Star Wars or a Star Wars movie that isn't happening.
No.
This was a fascinating story that broke during the strike. During an appearance on the Happy, Sad, Confused podcast, David S. Goyer, who wrote Vader Immortal, the VR game, among other things, revealed that when he was working at Lucasfilm, he also developed 2 different scripts for Star Wars movies. He said, quote, "I wrote an unproduced Star Wars movie that Guillermo del Toro was going to direct. That was about 4 years ago. And then I also have a script treatment for an Origins of the Jedi movie for Star Wars that took place 25,000 years before the first film." Of course, that one sounds a lot like the one Mr. James Mangold is going to work on. So, an idea that has been kicking around at Lucasfilm for quite some time. Now, Guillermo del Toro, he actually sort of followed up on this. He tweeted the clip of Goyer talking about this script. And he said, "True, can't say much, maybe 2 letters, J and BB. Is that 3 letters?" He then was more specific in a follow-up interview with Collider where he said, "We had the rise and fall of Jabba the Hutt. So I was super happy. We were doing a lot of stuff. And then it's not my property. It's not my money. And it's one of those 30 screenplays that goes away. Sometimes I'm bitter. Sometimes I'm not. I always turn to my team and say, good practice, guys. Good practice. We designed a great world. We designed great stuff. We learned. You can never be ungrateful with life. This is where Guillermo just gets sort of philosophical for a bit. Whatever life sends you, there's something to be learned from it. So, I trust the universe. I do. When something doesn't happen, I go, why? And I try to have a dialogue with myself. Why didn't it happen? And the more you swim upstream with the universe, the less you're going to realize where you're going. Ugh, philosopher Guillermo del Toro there.
Damn. Oh my God.
But an unproduced Jabba the Hutt movie.
We need some reinforcements for the shelf. It's getting a little heavy. I think it's gonna fall. I think it's gonna smash everything.
It better be a big shelf.
There's too much. There's a whole script of a Jabba the Hutt movie now on the shelf. That's this thick. Oh my gosh. And Guillermo, I don't really care about Jabba the Hutt as much. This could have been anything. Just the fact that the concept
Does
in my
anyone?
head, the concept in my head of Guillermo del Toro doing a Star Wars movie, that's the thing that I'm like sad that's not gonna happen. It could be about anything. It could be about a mouse droid. In fact, I might prefer that. But man, I can't believe we came so close to a Guillermo del Toro Star Wars movie.
Missed it by that much. I will say I'm sad about the Jabba the Hutt part of this. Like I love Guillermo as a director, so I agree with you, Chris. Like I'm sad that he didn't get to make this movie, but I'm sad about the Jabba part of this. I think that would have been really, really cool. Yeah, I sometimes feel like Star Wars has struggled with knowing what to do with its legacy characters. And you know, Jabba's he's the legacy character. Everybody knows Jabba the Hutt. Everybody knows Jabba the Hutt. And he's one that would get people's attention. But people don't, I don't know if people have really strong feelings about Jabba the way they do about Luke or Han or Leia. So you're not going to have not my Jabba campaigns going on. I mean, maybe you would, who knows? But like that's a character that you could do so much with.
Jake the Hutt.
Yeah. And there's just there's already an awareness for this character. And it would have been weird. It would have been different. Ahsoka's the first Star Wars thing to feature an alien as the main character. This would have been an alien that doesn't even speak English. Like, let's just get weird with this shit. Like, let's go all in on the weird side of Star Wars. And this is one where I want to put the pressure on Lucasfilm Disney to bring this project back. This is one I want to see. I'm so fascinated by it. And give me this as the fourth new Star Wars movie. Like I'm so in for it. I feel like it'd be such a great idea.
My hot take here is, and I mean, I don't know too much about the processes and progressions of writing and story connection and production of shows or movies, but I wonder if the same time where they were writing, making, and producing the Book of Boba Fett, and they had this storyline of the twin Hutts. There's a bit of drama in El Hutta. There's some things going down. People not liking certain people. Was a brief, sweet scent in the wind of a bigger world we would have dived into. I was about to say dived into. That is the world of the Hutts. I wonder if that would that storyline of Book of Boba Fett was a brief little hint of we could have gotten a Jabba movie, but I don't know if the timing lines up. But I could dream.
It might, because Goyer says it was about 4 years ago. So we go back, that's about 2019. So they're probably starting to kick around ideas at that point. If that's the case, that drives me up the wall, because I was so excited for the twins storyline in Book of Boba, and then it went nowhere. I was like,
nowhere.
Come on. I wonder if this is a victim of the Solo implosion.
It's got
because you do so after Solo, the next movie, everybody thinks the next movie that would have continued that storyline was supposed to be Han Solo 2. Han Duo, if you will. But actually it was going to be a movie that was being billed as the Mos Eisley Cantina movie. And Han was going to be kind of a supporting player in it. And it would have featured new characters, and it all would have centered around the cantina. And I feel like they were getting ready to build out a real Underworld storyline from there. And it would have probably involved the Lando movie. It probably would have involved an actual Solo sequel. And this probably would have involved this too. And if you look back, 4 years ago is 2019, maybe Goyer's memory's a little bit off. Maybe he's thinking 2018, and, Solo tanks at the box office, and Bob Iger and Kathleen Kennedy just get out the red pen and start scratching things off the release date schedule and take all those scripts and put it on that shelf.
Yeah.
Then they go to Home Depot and get some reinforcements for the shelf.
That's what I thought too when I first heard about this. I'm like, this reminds me of that Cantina movie. It seems kind of like the same vibe. So it makes sense that idea would have come around that time. And what really doesn't make sense is having that idea after the Cantina movie is canceled. Like that kind of then support your theory, because it doesn't make sense to cancel a Cantina movie and then greenlight a Jabba the Hutt movie. So it must have come up from that same grouping of pitches.
Yeah. Yeah. What might have been and what still could be, there's these things have a way of coming back sometimes. And if the Star Wars movies, when they return to theaters, if they are successful, they'll start to make more of them. And Guillermo del Toro, big name director, makes popular movies, makes critically acclaimed movies. What's The Shape of Water?
The Shape of Water is
like
amazing.
That movie is so good. It won all the awards. It was very popular, and it was so weird. And so let him do that in Star Wars. And the complaint people have, and you hear this a lot with people talking about Marvel these days and superhero fatigue, is they're all the same. Well, a Jabba movie would be different. At the very least, a Jabba movie would be different.
I don't know. Jabba becomes Force sensitive. That's the storyline.
I mean, there is a Hutt Jedi somewhere in some really
I'm sure,
some canon that's no longer it's half canon. Where's Joel Matthew?
Hey, maybe we would have found out what happened to Stinky finally. There's that mystery still out there.
Stinky the Hutt.
That's a weird one.
God, I love
well, we did just see Jabba the Hutt for the first time in many, many years in live action in Ahsoka.
Yes, we did.
You're right. I was waiting.
Very excited for that.
Waiting for the penny to
really
drop.
On that casting choice.
Great casting for Jabba.
Perfect.
Oh, incredible. All right, this will be our last news story. I have another one that I wanted to bring up, but I'll save this for a future week because I feel
we got plenty of time for that.
So much time.
It's gonna fire people up. But we're celebrating the end of the strikes, and the one of the strikes was the writer's strike. So let's celebrate the writers a little bit, and let's talk about the recently revealed writers for The Acolyte. This was posted on the WGA website. Here is who is writing episodes of the series in addition to showrunner Leslie Headland. You have Jason McAuliffe, who wrote and co-created the series Heathers. You have Charmaine DeGrate from House of the Dragon, Jasmine Flournoy from The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Eileen Shim also wrote on House of the Dragons, Claire Keichel from Watchmen, Core Donna, who wrote on Mr. Robot, Jocelyn Bio, who wrote on Russian Doll, and Jen Richards, who wrote on Her Story. Very established set of writers. Those are some of the biggest shows that have been on the air in the last couple of years. These are big shows that people are writing on. What's also interesting is, with the exception of the first and last episode of the series, every episode is co-written by multiple writers. The premiere is written by Leslie Headland. The finale is written by Jason McAuliffe. And then all the way through, you have episodes with 2 or 3 of these writers all working together, which is exciting. Also, one of the things they fought for so hard in the WGA strike was to make sure that people who were writing teams got paid appropriately. So that's another good sign. But I will say, it's really nice to have a Star Wars series with lots of voices in the room, lots of writers thinking these stories through, beating these stories out, figuring out the best way to write and tell these stories. And that's a lesson that, some other shows, which shall remain nameless, could really use. David, Jonathan. All I have to say about that. Very excited for the Acolyte.
I will say it just for the sake of saying it. This will be the best Star Wars show ever made. There's no reason for me to not think that. If it isn't, it isn't, but I'm going to predict it right now. This will be the best written Star Wars show on Disney Plus, based on because I had heard some of these names prior to this announcement, which is one of the reasons why I was so excited about this show. So it's good that I finally can talk about one of the reasons why I'm so excited about this show, because these are amazing writers, absolutely incredible.
Absolutely.
The one thing I've noticed with Disney and Star Wars at the moment is they're loving the House of the Dragon workers. They're loving them. Because we had even not a writer but director, Geeta Patel. She directed an episode. I can't remember what episode of Ahsoka. It could have been. I'm looking it up right now. Is it 7? I don't know. She's directed something for Ahsoka, but she also was a director on House of the Dragon as well. So they're loving the creatives over there. So it's just, I don't know, just to be interesting. And now they're getting some of the writers in as well. So
I adore House of the Dragon. It was if Andor hadn't come along, it probably would have been my favorite show of last year.
What was the best episode
of House of the Dragon?
Yeah.
Oh God. Like that's the thing. There isn't. I wouldn't even say there's a best episode. Right. Like they're all that good. They're all that good.
Yeah.
So, have you got a favorite episode, or have you got it?
No, I've never seen it before. I don't know what. I was just gonna compare what episode Geeta Patel did and what episode you liked. I was just gonna compare that. I've never seen Game of Thrones or House of Dragon.
I just got a Max subscription so I could watch all the Studio Ghibli movies. So I need to go back and finish House of the Dragon because it became a victim of me having to choose between that and Rings of Power, and I chose Rings of Power incorrectly.
Roasted.
I adored that show. It had such a steep hill to overcome. Not just following up one of the biggest shows of all time in Game of Thrones, but following up, what is often perceived as one of the biggest disappointments of all time in the Game of Thrones finale.
It was telegraphed. It was
the way the show ended. The if you just wrote down how it ended in bullet points, no notes, 100% agree. It's just how it was portrayed on television that I take issue with. It recaptured the magic of those early seasons of Game of Thrones and is in some ways even moving beyond that in its quality. So love that they're stealing all the talent from over there and bringing it.
Best Star Wars show. I'm predicting it will have the highest rating on Rotten Tomatoes of any Star Wars show.
I think it will from the critics.
I'm talking about critics.
I think there'll be a
there'll be a group of people that don't like it.
Yeah, I was gonna say
I've already sworn twice. I'm sorry, they just don't.
I was gonna say something, but I've already sworn twice on the show, and I'm like, do I want to go for a three-peat on the way back? Yeah, the assholes campaign would have something to do with this. All right. Let's move on. Let's get to Ask the SWU. This is what we've been waiting for. We put the call out on the social medias for folks to send in their questions, their comments, the stuff they wanted to hear us discuss on this week's show. And we got a whole heck of a lot. We're going to get through as much of it as we can. I've kind of grouped some of the comments together because some of them hit similar notes. And so I wanted to make sure we get to them, but they do kind of hit the same ideas. And we'll start with just the people who just, didn't have a question, but just wanted to welcome us back. So shout out to John and David on Facebook, and at Mateo Garcia Jax on the website formerly known as Twitter, who just had nice things to say about us coming back. We'll then move to all the people that wanted to know what we've been doing for the last 4 months. On Discord, Dr. Hugh17 says, welcome back. How does it feel to have the podcast up and running again? Well, I think it was good to give the podcast a break. I also think that the strike uncertainty is out of the way and you can continue as normal. P.S. I'm still hoping for IHOP to become international to make up for its lack of presence in the UK during Celebration London. I agree. Star Raptor on Instagram says, what have you been doing with all your spare time in the last 4 months? Jesse Bennett on Discord says, how has everyone been? I've missed seeing everyone together again, and it's great to see the podcast return. What did everyone do with their Thursdays instead? And Matthew replied to Dr. Hughes' question saying, oh, this reminds me, when are we doing an IHOP party in Niagara Falls, Ontario?
No, specific.
It's, what can it be? How does it feel to have the podcast up and running again? It feels great. Technical difficulties be damned. It feels great to have it up and running.
That's my philosophy.
What have you all been doing with your spare time for the last 4 months? To which I ask, what spare time? I'll speak to myself personally, and then I'll let everybody else answer this one. But I was so incredibly busy and so incredibly tired all summer. That is the closest I've ever come to legitimately burning out. And as much as I hated not doing the podcast and I hated not discussing Ahsoka, I was a little bit grateful to have something taken off my plate. I will say, if I could have chosen what was being taken off my plate, this would have been the last thing. I would have much rather continued doing this than some of the other stuff I was doing. But I was sort of grateful to not have one more thing to worry about. So I from about Celebration London until early October was just like, oh my God, it's so tired. I think if you go back to those Celebration, those shows between Celebration and San Diego Comic-Con when we went on hiatus, I'm sure you can hear it in my voice that I'm just beat the whole time. And so in the spare time, I recovered is what I did. And just enjoyed having one less thing to worry about, even though it would have been my favorite thing. So
yeah, I mean, it's perfect timing for me because my similar burnout ended on Monday. So it's perfect. It's my first week where I have energy in like months. So good timing for that.
Yeah. Hannah?
Ben?
I was just thinking, I genuinely I caught up on my Star Trek. I watched a lot of things. I watched a lot of movies. I know. I watched a lot of movies. I got some early Christmas shopping done. And
wow!
And someone tried to break into my house on Halloween night, so that was also a thing that happened.
Trick or they definitely.
I've been buying cameras and security equipment to thing. That's what I've been doing my spare time. What I've been doing in my spare time, and some people have already mentioned that, is basically at this time every Thursday night, or about every Thursday night, we would do Discord hangouts on our Discord, and they were a blast. They were an absolute blast. We had a ton of people show up. Shout out to Andrew, shout out to Tony, shout out to Joel, Jesse, Jake Damon showed up. He told us all about his endeavor. He fought a very small man in a knife fight one time. He told us all about it.
What?
And it was an enthralling story. You had to be there. I did a Ben's Connection corner for the first 2 episodes for only the people that were on the Discord. Okay, if you were on the Discord that night, you got a special exclusive Ben's Connection corner, complete with theme music. Okay, was not recorded.
Oh my God,
nothing. It was all there just for the people on the Discord. We had some wild shenanigans, wild shenanigans that happened, and that was kind of what I used to kind of think would be like, okay, I have this time slot that I've had for 11 years that I've been coming to do this thing, and it was nice to think. So shout out to everyone who came. That was genuinely a highlight of the strike, being able to talk a little Ahsoka, talk a little bit of everything. It was so much fun.
Amazing.
Damn.
Hannah, I think you just did what you normally do.
Yeah, I was one thing that was a highlight. For Halloween, I carved my first pumpkin here in Australia, which was quite a bloody journey to find one. Is
that not a thing there?
We barely even acknowledge Halloween. They kind of just put out some extra chocolates at the supermarket. That's as Halloween as we get. That just like for those random 10 Americans visiting right now, here's some extra chocolate. That's about it. But I managed to find the specific pumpkin that you like do for carving, and I carved a rebellion logo. So I learned how to pumpkin carve. It was a horrible experience. Incredibly smelly, wet, moist, gooey. It was horrible, but very fun. Playing games online. I've been having I can't even remember what I've been doing. Looking at Clone Wars behind the scenes, been live streaming, watching Clone Wars behind the scenes, which has been so fun. I'm just loving going back in time a little bit. And hanging out. I don't know. That's about it. Hanging out. That's me. Fighting kangaroos, wrestling the wombats, and having a cup of tea with the koalas. That's what's been going down.
There it is. There it is. Everybody go check out the Raeside on YouTube for all of that tremendous content. I will say I feel like I went a little bit like woe is me there in my answer. So I'll tell you something fun I did.
Yeah. Well,
during this
I almost
point.
died. I'm okay now.
Yeah. I did not do like any recording during that time. Almost none. The one exception was when I went on the biggest morning show in Toronto to not talk about, my expertise in Star Wars, as you might think, but instead went on to preview the Toronto Maple Leafs season. I got to go on CBC Metro Morning and talk about the NHL season for about 5-10 minutes. I went in studio. I went down to the CBC building in Toronto, which was a tremendous experience. And it was really, really cool. And for once, the guy who was filling in as host that day is this guy, Eli Glasner, whose thing is usually pop culture. And so it's very rare that I'm in a room with someone and I'm not the one wearing a Star Wars t-shirt. But I was there to talk about hockey. So I'm there in a jersey and he's got an Empire Strikes Back t-shirt on. I'm like, this is weird. This isn't right. But as I sat down in the studio, I sort of realized, oh my God, I haven't spoken into a microphone for like 4 months. Here I am about to talk to the biggest audience I've ever talked to about the thing I'm not usually here talking about. And I had this like little moment where the producer, who just had the best East Coast of Canada accent I've ever heard, is like telling me how far to sit away from the mic, that I'm like, oh my God, I don't know how to do this anymore. Oh my God, what's about to happen? Oh my God. But then it went on. I think it went great. You can listen to and watch the clip on my Instagram, Dominic J25. You can check it out. It was really, really fun. So that was a highlight of the break.
That's nice. If anybody is a massive fan of Genshin Impact, I now have the highest world level, so I can go play with anybody in the game.
There you go.
That takes a lot of time, so that explains where I've met.
Sounds impressive.
There we go.
I rewatched Andor. Sorry, I'll add that as well.
This is a big thing. I rewatched
Andor. That is a big thing. They know about it. I'll slot it into a show one day when we have just like a pocket of time. Mm-hmm. I'll redo my overall thoughts on Andor. I'll redo it.
Very interesting. We'll dig back up your scores and see how you feel now.
Please. I want to do it.
Yeah. So there's that. That's what we've been up to. So thank you to everybody who asked, and TBD on future IHOP parties. Who knows where and when those might be. And then we had a lot of folks asking about Ahsoka breakdowns. Andrew Hallaby on Twitter says, can you guys do some Ahsoka roundtables to catch up if you have the time? Lucky Lego on Discord said, obviously we need Ahsoka theories. Will you guys have an episode breaking down the lot of the Ahsoka show? I know you did Discord meetups every week, but not everyone was there for that. And Nathaniel.hp on Instagram says, Ahsoka episode by episode breakdown. And as we went over off the top, yes, we will be doing that over the next 6 weeks. So we'll be doing kind of 2 episodes a week for some of them and 1 episode a week for some other ones. So stay tuned. That is the future of the show. And then some folks wanted to know about season 2 of Ahsoka at Fulcrum Mandor on on X. Said, so glad y'all are back. Do you think Ahsoka season 2 is coming, or will that story be continued elsewhere? And Zababy on Discord. ZZABBYY. I don't know how else to say that. Said, when will Ahsoka season 2 be? So season 2 of Ahsoka, I assume everyone here is in favor of that, unless somebody wants to be really contrarian and go against it.
It's this point where it's so obvious. I feel like they've announced it, but I guess they haven't.
Yeah.
It's like, it feels like if they literally don't do a season 2, it will still be followed up with something. Like, we know the movie's coming. So like Filoni, at the very least, like, we'll wrap it up in the movie, if nothing else. But we know Mandalorian season 4 is probably going into production anytime now. There's more stuff happening. It's almost a guarantee. I feel like that ending was just like a flexing of just like, we can do whatever we want. We can Filoni is just like, he's on the top of the world. He can do whatever he wants. And so I feel like a season 2, that was like a confirmation of a season 2 at the end, that ending.
Yeah. I mean, Willow said they were going to do a second season with the way they ended that show. And now you can't even find it on Disney Plus. So let's not count our chickens before they hatch.
Unfortunately, Willow is not Star Wars.
It's true. I think season 2 feels like a practically a guarantee, like you said, Chris. The only way I see it not happening is if the movie that Dave Filoni is doing becomes the movies that Dave Filoni is doing. That it's not just Heir to the Empire, but it's also Dark Force Rising and The Last Command. Which, by the way, I'm entirely in favor of the movie being titled Heir to the Empire. If there are sequels, please don't name them Dark Force Rising and The Last Command. Those are terrible titles. Sorry, Tim.
Wow.
But but like, you know, the stuff with Balin and the Mortis gods, Ahsoka and Sabine are stuck on Peridia. There's the whole thing with Thrawn and the Night Sisters. I feel like that stuff's got to be wrapped up. And if it's not in a second season, like, that's the minimum the first half of a movie.
It's so clear to me, I said this earlier, that the first season is an introduction to something. Like, it's not a complete story. So clearly they're planning something. The question is, what will the format be? Movie, Mandalorian, Ahsoka 2, another show with a different name, Thrawn, this TV show, Jabba the Hutt, the TV show. I don't know. It could be called so many things, but the story will continue. It's clearly a setup for a story that will happen at some time, someplace, with some name.
If I know we're talking about season 2 of Ahsoka, but I just want to say, if the movie is just one movie, then I not only want a season 2 of Ahsoka to lead us into Heir to the Empire, I want season 3 of Ahsoka as the epilogue to that. Because I feel like Ahsoka's story is such that you need to continue it beyond defeating Thrawn, beyond the conclusion of Din Djarin's story and Grogu's story and all the other characters of the Mandoverse. I feel like that story needs to move beyond that main ending and, like I said, be the epilogue to the Mandoverse as we know it. If that's how they're going to do it with Skeleton Crew, Mando 4, Ahsoka 2, Heir to the Empire.
She's already progressed so far in her story with her character. It's actually kind of interesting that the show is called Ahsoka, because a lot of the questions about what's going to happen have nothing to do with Ahsoka. Like, she's already moved a lot as a character. So that's why it wouldn't surprise me if that story continues to be told under a different moniker than Ahsoka.
Yeah.
I mean, she's already the White. I mean, Gondalf's story ends there.
Yeah. But I think there's, even if we don't get a second season of Ahsoka, I want another Ahsoka story, even if it's like a mini series, even if it's 3 or 4 episodes after everything else goes down.
She's just gonna show up in the Rey movie. That's what's gonna happen.
Bring it on. Love it. Okay, let's keep going. This question comes from @thenegotiator95 on Twitter. What's going on here, you think? Speculation, baby. And it's the screenshot of the Mortis gods from the end of Ahsoka, of the finale. What's going on here? Speculate away.
Oh, this gets me because, oh my gosh, because that was the Balin story, and now I'm like, how are they going to write that? So now I'm like sad that we're probably not going to get it in the same exact way that it was initially conceived.
Yeah.
And was it Ray Stevenson? Am I saying that right?
Yeah.
I'm going to say that for every actor because I haven't said it with my mouth in months.
Right? Yeah.
So Ray Stevenson, like, I'm very upset. I'm very sad that he's not going to be able to reprise his role, and whatever that story was, it seemed so incredibly interesting. So that's a great question from Omar there, and that speculation might be re-speculating whatever they were gonna do.
Yeah. I think it's very interesting that, you have the father, you have the son, and the daughter is missing her head. And, Ahsoka's buddy, the owl, Morai, seems to have some sort of connection with the daughter. And Ahsoka's always had some sort of connection with the daughter. Wonder what's going on here.
I think it's just symbolic that there's an hang on.
There you go.
An imbalance. There we go. I think there's just there's an imbalance, and there's got to be a rebalancing. So I think there's kind of a few theories. It's like, oh, is it Ahsoka? Is Anakin the father? Who's the son? Is Balin the son? And like what you just said, Chris, like he's not here. RIP. But it's. I think it's very. It's obviously a big symbol for something, but I can't quite piece who's in what place.
I'm only the millionth person to repeat this, but I do love the idea that maybe the daughter statue was destroyed by the Night Sisters because they're like, oh, she's light side, get rid of her. But then we're kind of okay with the son. We're kind of okay with
I've never heard that ever. What do you mean the millionth? This is the first time I'm ever hearing such an idea.
You don't listen to as many podcasts and read as many tweets as I do, because nobody does. I listen to and watch too many.
Cool
but
flex.
I do like the discourse around, because people are saying like, okay, Balin, maybe he's the father. Maybe he's like, because there's a general like theorizing surrounding like, okay, certain characters are going to take the place of the father, son, and daughter. And then you open up a whole nother can of worms with the whole Abeloth thing and the mother and all this stuff. I'm not even going to touch that, okay? That's a whole other thing. Yeah. But like the whole idea of just like what's going on, is this a portal to Mortis? Is Peridia actually Mortis? There's whole different things. But I'm like, okay, I think Anakin being there, and maybe the reason Anakin is not in the sequel trilogy is because he went off to Mortis to take the father's place, as he was told to do back in the Clone Wars. That's what the father brought him to Mortis to do, is to take his place. So, I think that maybe Balin is supposed to be the son stand-in, and maybe Ahsoka is supposed to be the daughter. Who knows?
I get where this theory is coming from. I really do. But I'm going to say, I think that's too literal for Dave Filoni.
Yeah.
I don't think Dave is, I feel like it's too obvious. It's too literal. It's too you need the father, the son, and the daughter. So let's find characters that are their rough equivalents. And I don't think that's Dave's style. I think he has, I do think he has a plan in mind. Nothing is done in this series by accident. But I just, that to me feels like if that's the answer, okay. But that feels a little basic for
there's gotta be a wrinkle. There's gotta be a twist to it. It's not going to be that simple. I like Dave Filoni's writing. I am a huge fan of how Dave Filoni tells stories. I have been since into the Clone Wars. So I trust, as much as I will have qualms with some of the things he's done and said and written, I think he has a grand plan here, and I think it's going to be good. I do think we are going to Mortis. I think that's a thing that's going to happen. How that happens, what's going to happen when we get to Mortis, it's all up in the air. But I'm very interested to see like those, because I didn't even catch those statues were the Mortis gods the first time I watched. I was like, oh, statues, okay. And then people on Twitter were like, oh, it's the Mortis god. I'm like, what?
Yeah, I didn't the first time either.
No,
I got it. Yeah.
Yes, I got it. Yeah.
Oh, big man with beard on a statue. Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Big pointy man.
It's actually not the father. It's Ben's character from the beginning of this show.
Yeah. Old Ben, the angry man.
Old Ben, the Star Wars hermit. That is his official title.
Right. The
there we
hermit.
go.
I love it.
And actually, I don't know this person who you're talking about. For the record, I wasn't here for that. I was a completely different guy.
Sure, Ben. Sure. All right, let's do another question. This one comes from Martin Ingleson on Discord. They write, "Welcome back. A question that maybe could be explained. But during the flashback / memory scene in Ahsoka, why did they just have the face of the clone covered and not him entirely? What was it, because Tamora Morrison wasn't available in person to shoot the scene, possibly? Or was it an artistic choice because that's how they respect fallen soldiers? I just thought it was odd to only cover the face with a black sheet."
Yeah, I thought that was weird too. That all of the stuff that we didn't.
I think they just didn't have the money to get Tim Morrison and de-age him for that one shot. I think that's the long and short of it. But because like I thought like, okay, it would make sense if like the soldier was dead, but like he moves, he's alive. He just got his face covered for some reason. So I think it's like they had Tim Morrison voicing him. That was good enough. It was good enough. But it would have been a lot, because getting Tim Morrison to play a minus 20 year version of himself would have been a challenge, perhaps.
I also think like having Tem there, having him be digitally de-aged, might have felt like a bit of a distraction from the scene, because then you're not thinking about Ahsoka's interaction with the character. You're thinking about, oh my God, it's Tem, and oh my God, he looks like he did 20 years ago, or oh my God, he doesn't look like he did 20 years ago. And you're so you kind of lose the focus there. And in an episode that has so much, oh look at that, oh look at that, oh look at that, with Anakin and Vader and Rex and everything that's going on with those Clone Wars flashbacks, I kind of feel like it was just in this moment the focus is on Ahsoka and her connection with the clones and her response to the violence around her, that to do anything else might have drawn the focus off of that.
And I think it's also important to remember, like, it's a dream sequence, but essentially it is this kind of weird dream sequence that she's present in, and so much the dialogue can be like this double entendre of like it's future Anakin and Ahsoka talking, and then it's present Anakin and Ahsoka talking, and what they talk about is basically the same and has similar different meanings based on what you're referencing. But like, also it's a dreamscape. That's why I love the whole thing with like it's fade in the background. And obviously like you watch it like, oh, they just didn't have the budget to put an ATTE in the background. It's like, no, it's part of the scene. It's meant to be like, you're in a scene, you can't see. You're focused on the here and now, what is things. So like, I agree. Like it could have been a distraction. It really wasn't important. And, the technical details of it, it's all in what you're viewing there.
Yeah. Another question from the Discord. This one comes from Joel Davis, co-host of Eye on Canon.
Who?
Yeah, never heard of him. Joel says, I'm sure this was talked about in the chat, but what are your thoughts on needing to watch Rebels or The Mandalorian to understand Ahsoka? I'm in the camp that 100% believes you do not need to watch them, because at the end of the day, it's a pretty basic story. Disgruntled student with issues with a cold and distant master who with issues, and in the end, they work out their issues. That's a pretty basic plot in a lot of movies and TV shows. As for characters like Thrawn, he is just, quote, an Imperial bad guy, but blue and maybe smarter than most, end quote. And that's all anyone needs to know. Honestly, the only thing that could have used more explaining is what the heck Balin wants, and giving a bit more context to the Mortis statues, because I can see people getting lost very easily on that, but that's about it. Those are my thoughts. Curious to hear yours.
I think in general, stories are told in such a way that they're self-explanatory. So I think having the background of Rebels helps kind of add more context, and the background of Mandalorian helps add more context to what you're seeing. But I think someone who just watched it, who was only watching that, wouldn't be too confused. Yeah. I can't expect that.
Hannah, your thoughts?
Yes. Well, disagree. Of course you can watch, and that's the baddie, that's the goodie. Absolutely, you can. I think they have to do that as these writers. You got to present it so anyone can kind of ingest the direction of what the show is. I really, really think to get the point of everything together, I really think it's you need to have watched probably at least Rebels more than anything. Probably at least Rebels and then Clone Wars in that order. To actually understand the point of everything. But it's not exclusive. I don't think they've excluded the people who haven't watched those shows. I don't think it's excluded anyone, but I do think if you want to actually get the purpose of the show and engage with the show, you need to have watched at least Rebels, probably both. That's my take.
Yeah. I agree with you, Hannah. I have mixed feelings about this because I've come through this, and after like going into this, I'm just in the show is like, okay, every Star Wars story, every episode, every series needs to stand on its own and needs to operate as if you haven't seen anything else and you can go into it blindly and watch it. I don't think Ahsoka does that well. I genuinely think. I think one of my criticisms of the show, not my criticism on the behalf of the people that haven't watched Clone Wars or Rebels, is the fact that I think if you haven't watched those shows, I think you will not get a lot of this show. Not to say you can't enjoy it, not to say you can't like watch it and get the bare bones of it, but I think there's a lot of things like the significance of Ezra. I feel like you're not getting that. Like my almost tearing up seeing Ezra, Iman Sisfani, seeing him for the first time was absolutely dependent on the fact that I watched 4 seasons of Rebels and had so many years with that character. Like, I don't know how you feel about that scene if you haven't seen Rebels. And then going far as like, the Clone Wars flashbacks, whatever, you can get the gist of that. But I think there's so many things that are not explained very well. And I think ultimately, but I'm coming out of this show going, I'm not sure it's necessary. I really think ultimately shows, you should be able to just create a show that is for a certain group of fans, and may not everyone get it. Ahsoka is a love letter to Star Wars animation fans. It is a show built from the ground up to service fan. I know fan service gets bandied about as this bad word. It's not bad. There is good fan service and there's bad fan service. I think Ahsoka is a hell of a lot of good fan service, and ultimately, I don't think it needed to service people that are outside of that demographic. And I think it begs the question of just like, and this is not a rhetorical question. I'm genuinely like open to people things like, does every show have to be that way? Can shows just exist of this is a sequel to this is a sequel to Rebels, and you should have watched Rebels or you're going to be confused. That's the thing. Which I hate to be like that to people that haven't watched Rebels, but I'm also like, it's on Disney Plus, guys. It's been there for years. You had a chance to watch it.
It's like trying to say, oh, let's make the Rings of Power for the people who haven't watched Lord of the Rings. It's like, well, I mean, you can, but it's like you'll get all the meaning out of everything and all the characters if you have watched Lord of the Rings and understand the world. So it's like, yeah.
I'll tell you guys, the best review I heard of this show came from my colleague Nova. He told me, he's like, I like Star Wars, but I haven't seen the animation, I haven't seen any of that stuff. But he was watching Ahsoka, and he loved it so much that he went back and watched all of Clone Wars and all of Rebels.
Nice.
So I think that tells you what you need to know about the show's ability to appeal to people who just like Star Wars and haven't seen the other stuff. Now, again, that's one person out of, the millions that may have watched this thing. But I do think that, generally Star Wars is more accessible to that general audience than we give it credit for. We give it credit for. I think we spend a lot of time worrying about that when we don't need to. That said, I do think Star Wars sometimes shoots itself in the foot and makes things unnecessarily complicated for various reasons. And there is something that when we get to it, I'm going to hammer them for in this show, where I think there was an opportunity that was so badly missed for reasons that drive me up the wall. But we'll get to that. We'll get to that.
That's what they get. That's what they get for not putting Mara Jade in this show.
Jeez. Can you tell us the episode? What's the episode number?
Episode 7.
Okay.
It's probably not something you're thinking of.
It's not Mara Jade. Okay.
No, it's probably not something you guys are thinking of. And I say that to everybody who's listening. But it is something. There is something that sticks in my craw a little bit. But we'll get there.
They should have hugged. They should have hugged.
They should have hugged.
Everyone agrees.
Oh man. All right, Hannah, I think we're about to lose you.
Yes, I got to bounce. But thank you so much. This has been a blast. Feels good. Feels good being back, and can't wait for these. Can't wait for these deep dives, deep divins. Oh, man, this is it. I gotta work up the I can't even think of the word now.
Vocabulary.
No, the stamina. The stamina.
There we go.
Again.
Incredible.
All right, thanks, gang. I'll catch you next week.
See you, Hannah.
All right, bye.
All right, seeing as we just read Joel's Discord comment, let's hit his super chats. Joel says, Shin times Sabine better be endgame or the entire Mando or the entire Mando versus a 0 out of 10. Kidding, kind of, not kidding. He wants Shin and Sabine to get together.
I mean, if it's not gonna be Ezra.
Hey,
that whole like a brother line. I was just like,
hey, look, they're stealing all of the creatives from House of the Dragon for a reason.
Oh no.
Don't give them any ideas. Don't do that. You put it out in the world now. Good Lord.
Oh man. Sure, why not? I'm all for it. We keep talking about how there's no love stories in Star Wars, so just do one. I don't at this point don't even care who it is. Joel, I like this one. Joel says, I agree with Dom on films and think that the focus on streaming was the biggest factor to letting Rogue Squadron essentially get shelved before 2023. I think that, and they were working on some technology stuff, and I don't think the script was there, but yeah, I do think that definitely played a part in it. And then Joel says, why do you think Dave and John don't use writers' rooms? Is it a personal thing or something they are being limited by because of Disney? I think it's personal. I think that's just them.
I think it's just their process. I mean, it's just how they were things like, Mandalorian was like, oh, this is Jon Favreau's thing. He's going to write it. And this is how it works. Unfortunately, that's the good and bad. There's good and bad in that.
I don't want to say, I'm not trying to say something bad about these guys because I like both of them a lot. And I think they're both tremendously creative and tremendously talented and nice people and all the interactions we've had with them. But I wonder if there's a little bit of an ego play going on here where Favreau's like, I'm the guy, so I'm going to write my entire show myself for the most part. And then Filoni's like, I get to do my show with my character who I developed with George. So yeah, I'm going to write it all myself. So and he's like, if John can do it, I can do it. I think there's a little bit of that going on. As much as I love these guys, I think there's a little bit of that going on. And there's been a lot of reporting lately about how Marvel makes their shows and how they don't do it the traditional TV way, and how this has created some headaches for them. Maybe there was a little bit of a mandate from Disney as well to be like, just do it yourselves. Just do it yourselves. Don't worry. It's just fine. Just do it yourselves. So, yeah, that's my thought on it.
Anyway. I mean, it's hard not to trust the people who made one of the most watched streaming shows in the history of.
It's true.
So I get why they'd give them a shot at it, but I think it panned out better in one situation than the other, and I think that the case is I think Filoni and Favreau are great together. I think Filoni can stand on his own. I think Favreau could have used a little bit of help. That's my opinion.
I think they both could use a little bit of help, but we'll get to that. We'll get to that in future weeks. It's only positive things tonight. Only positive things tonight. All right. Continuing with Discord comments. This one comes from Andrew Haley. Welcome back. What upcoming Star Wars projects are you most looking forward to, and which ones do you think we'll get next? Chris, I think you answered this earlier.
Yeah, Acolyte for sure. Nothing else exists in my mind right now.
Yeah. I mean, I'm hyped for next year where we might, and it's not unreasonable to think we might get Acolyte and Andor in the same year.
And Skeleton Crew.
And Skeleton Crew. And Bad Batch.
Yeah.
I like if you had honestly, if I was picking my top 3 for like what I'm most excited for, like looking ahead, just TV wise, it would be probably I think I would go Andor season 2 is my top one, just because it's a known quantity and season 1 was so good and I'm hyped for season 2. Then Acolyte, then Bad Batch. I think those 3 are
the
really
thing, season 2. I have reservations about it because of the condensing of the story. And so the thing you say about known quantity, for me, it's not a known quantity for me because it's not the same kind of style of pacing per se that season 1 was. So if it was like a 5-season show and this is season 2 of a 5-season show, I would be so for it. But I'm kind of a little reserved going to season 2 because I don't know how that will play. Because one of the things that was amazing about season 1 is that how it gave so much time to breathe, and I'm worried that they're going to lose that. So I'm still kind of waiting to watch it to have my opinion on it. Whereas Acolyte, just again, the writers are amazing. The showrunner is amazing. The concept is probably one of the more innovative of concepts for Star Wars shows. So hard to beat that for me.
Trailer they showed us at Celebration was pretty freaking badass. It was pretty great. Ben, what's your most hyped coming down the pipe?
I mean, right at this second, Ahsoka season 2. Like that's the thing that I am like stupid hyped over. Just like I really do like want to see this thing continue. I didn't like. Again, we're in the situation where it's like, Ahsoka show. Could this work? Could this not work? Now I'm like, I want more of this. I want this to continue. And I'm looking at that and going back to what we're talking about with like, what is this setting up? What are we getting? Like, I see this ending as like not just set up for another season. I think a whole series of stories. I think you're digging a lot of different storytelling. That the whole concept of Peridia and what that might lead to is just limitless. How much stuff could be going on there, and the fact that Ahsoka just barely. There's so much that is alluded to. I think it's one of my frustrations with Ahsoka is that it does so much, especially with Balin and Shin, of just like, oh, something calls to me. Like, what is it? Just tell me something. Waiting all season, and you get to the finale. It's nothing. It's not nothing, but it's not enough. And so it is frustrating. But I'm hopeful that like more stuff's coming. They're setting something up here. Filoni has a plan. Trust it. But yeah, that's that whole. I think which could end up being like a parallel storyline is something that could go even connect with the sequel trilogy or the Rey Skywalker movie. Just saying.
Yeah. Whew. Exciting times. And also from the Discord, we have from Jesse Bennett. Jesse asks, only one question for me this time. Well, he asked another one earlier. With the outcome of the strikes, do you think we will see a change in how announcements and promotions will happen? And if so, what do you think it will look like? I think the next round of announcements is all the release date changes that are going to happen. I think Marvel already did theirs today. I'm going to say this. I know we were anticipating Skeleton Crew at the end of this year and then kind of thought, oh, maybe early next year. December 2024. I think it's being delayed like a whole year. I think we're going to see Acolyte. I think we're going to see Andor. I think we're going to see Bad Batch all before it.
Interesting.
Because you can't just think of it in the linear sense of, okay, these things are in production and they stop production, or maybe they were able to kind of mosey along in the production without actors and writers for a while, and they're back. It's now they're working under a new system with new contracts, new rules, new ways of doing things. And just like, I mean, we just happened. Daredevil Born Again was well into production, was filming, and they fired the entire creative team. The writers, the showrunners, they're all gone, and they hired new people, and they're retooling the entire show. I'm not saying that's going to happen to Acolyte or Skeleton Crew, but something similar could happen in regards to, you know, retooling things, going back and reshooting things, whatever else. There's a lot of stuff that could happen, and you know, I think there's going to be a backlog of stuff now because now they haven't been working on stuff for a while, and they're going to need to spread things out. And I think we're going to see release dates are going to be pushed even further. Even if something's done right now, they may be pushing it further just because they can fill that gap with something. Oh, we've got something to work for because we don't have anything right now because we haven't been paying our writers and actors to do stuff.
Yeah. I do think next year is going to look different than we thought it was. I know I'm saying Ahsoka or not Ahsoka, Andor and Acolyte feel like definite things, but it's very possible one of them gets pushed to 2025. Very, very possible.
Acolyte. It's so bad. No.
And you know, there may be, you know, extensive rework, reshoots, that sort of thing to be done on these shows. Who knows? Things change, times change. You know, plans change. So it's, I think that's the next sort of wave of announcements. In terms of how they're made, I'd like it if they were a little bit more open, but I get why they're not. They've been burned. So I think, you know, we'll see it. I think it's going to continue how it continues. I think we'll see announcements at Celebration and then just sporadically, randomly when it's about to leak to something else. And everything else will just kind of remain in the dark until there is something concrete to show us, like a director and an actor, or a trailer, or behind the scenes reel, you know, things like that.
And I think we as Star Wars fans, I think we need to be a little more patient, a little more understanding when it comes to being. I know it's very frustrating, especially when you come on a Star Wars podcast and you don't have anything to talk about and you don't know what's coming next. It's frustrating to not know the future. But I think we need to trust the system and go like, okay, stuff's happening. Even if we're not hearing about it, even if it hasn't been announced, we know they're working. It's not like Lucasfilm closed and they're just not doing anything. There's no more Star Wars. Their stuff is happening. Let's just be patient and wait for it, because we've been on the other side of that, which is, look at all these things. Rangers of the New Republic, Droid Story, all these amazing things.
What the hell happened to that?
Where are they?
Well, we know what happened to Rangers of the New Republic. I think we have a pretty good idea on that one. Droid Story, still nothing has been said about that.
It's an animated show too. You'd think they would just pump that out like really quick. Like get Anthony Daniels in the studio and get this thing done. Damn it.
Yeah. Not to mention, there's probably going to be more seasons of Visions and that sort of thing slotted in there as well. Tales of the Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's good stuff coming, and who knows? Maybe there will be successor shows to the Bad Batch. You know, that continue that Clone Wars animation legacy.
There's got to be. I can't imagine that Tales of the Jedi will be the only thing like that.
Definitely won't be. All right, one more. We got one more. We've made it through this barrage of comments and questions from all of you lovely people out there. From the Discord, Vlad Sander asks, my question is this: considering the current direction of all Star Wars shows, live action and animated so far, do you think it's possible that the announced upcoming new Jedi Order movie will be dealing with the Yuuzhan Vong, the Star Forge, or the Shadow Academy?
Yes.
No.
I don't know. I don't know what the Shadow Academy is, but yes.
I think it's because of the fact that when I see ideas in Star Wars that almost make it and then they don't, I just assume that they're gonna come back. And
Jabba the Hutt movie.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the fact that the Yuuzhan Vong were gonna factor into like Clone Wars season 10 or something like that, I think that shows that there's still a desire to put them in to the current canon. And so I don't know, that makes the most sense. What I will say is I don't think it will be like it won't be like the main driver of the plot like it would have been in the original like New Jedi Order era or Children of the Force or whatever that was. Like I think it's going to be more just like, oh, there's a character that's a Yuuzhan Vong or something, or they come across the Yuuzhan Vong. It's like a little situation they have to deal with. But I don't think they're going to be like the main enemy for like multiple movies, because I think that's too similar to what we have in that source material, and they tend to flip a lot in their head, like Quinlan Vos, Aura Singh, Admiral Thrawn, all flipped around.
I was gonna say the kind of the exception to what you're saying is Thrawn. Like he still feels like he's in that same sort of role as he was in the source material. Yes, they've made lots of changes around him, but he is still.
Well, they've committed
as it seems now the primary antagonist.
Thrawn is a committed idea, and the thing that makes Thrawn different is that you have Tim Zahn redoing his canon. Like that's not happened with the other characters. It's not like you have like Jan Duursma coming back and like redoing Quinlan Vos for the new canon. But the fact that they brought Tim Zahn back to write the new Thrawn books, you know, they've committed to refleshing out that character and having him be kind of the same role that he was to almost a similar extent. I think that the difference though is that I wouldn't expect to see it be like Luke and Leia and Han fighting Thrawn in the Dave Filoni movie. I don't think that's going to be. I think it's going to be different characters. So it's not. So that's the one big difference there is he's not being pitted against the original cast of the original trilogy. But other than that, he's for a time. But I think there's the Vong. We're going to see them at some point. We have to. I think they were so close to putting them in. The fact that George greenlit putting them in and it just didn't happen suggests that probably in a Filoni project. If I had to guess, probably a Filoni project.
I say no to that question, just because I don't feel like any of those things are immediate. I don't think like they're coming soon. I don't think the Vong are going to be in the new Jedi Order film. I'm all for seeing them. Like I think that would be cool. But I sort of feel like I want something new that kind of fills that role. If we have an extra galactic invasion and we're starting to play with the idea of other galaxies in the Star Wars universe, there's a lot of great ideas with the Vong, but I'd like to maybe see a different take on them that doesn't have to be, not that it'd be beholden, but doesn't have to be inspired specifically by the Yuuzhan Vong, but, do something along those lines of the New Jedi Order book series and the Vong invasion, but give us a different sort of adversary than the Yuuzhan Vong specifically. But a good question, and who knows what they might draw in from Legends.
To any question like this, I always go back to Luke showing up in The Mandalorian and going like, okay, that was the moment. Then like, okay, no holes barred, anything is possible. And now that moment at the end of season 2 pales into comparison to the stuff we've seen since then of the absolutely insane things that no one ever thought would be possible. Many of which happened in Ahsoka. So just the idea of Thrawn coming up a few years ago may have been crazy, but now we're like, this is normal. Like Thrawn is the big bad. So I always say it's like, anything is possible. Don't write off anything. I don't care how ridiculous it is. Everyone thought, cloned Emperor Palpatine. That's so dumb. They're never going to put that in anything. And
somehow Palpatine returned. But yes, thank you everybody for your questions. We'll of course do Ask the SWU every week, just about. If something real big happens, maybe we'll skip it, but every week for the foreseeable future. So get on the Discord. That's where we'll mainly do it, Discord and in the live chat with super chats. But every now and again, we'll open it up as we did this week to all the social medias. But join the Discord. That's the place. That's the place to be. All right. One last thing before we go. Phase 3 of the High Republic kicks off in earnest this month. We've had a couple of comic books, Shadows of Starlight, the relaunch of the main series for Phase 3, and of course, Eye of Darkness by George Mann. The first adult novel hits shelves next week. And all the way back at San Diego Comic-Con. So this has been sitting in the can for months now. I got to sit down with 4 of the High Republic authors, George Mann, Charles Soule, Cavan Scott, and Justina Ireland, and we chatted all about what was to come in Phase 3. There are some spoilers in here for Phase 1, so just a heads up about that. And I will say, for everybody that's listening to this, it's going to sound like anything else that we've recorded at a convention, because it'll be a little bit echoey. There'll be some background noise. It's just a function of the room we were in. For the people that were watching it, I filmed it in kind of an unusual way because I was a one-man band at San Diego Comic-Con for most of it. And some of the other interviews I had some help with, or we did just straight audio, and you'll hear those in the coming weeks, But this one, I basically just sat behind my phone, held it up, and pointed it at the authors while I asked them questions. So it's a little bit amateurish in its appearance, but I will say I think they, and this is not me tooting my own horn, this is a testament to Charles, Cavan, George, and Justina. They, with their answers, elevate it to where, regardless of how goofy it may look, it will sound great because of their answers. So with that, let's travel back to San Diego in July of this year and chat with George Mann, Charles Soule, Cavan Scott, and Justina Ireland.
Here we are, San Diego Comic-Con with some of the High Republic authors. Let's go around the table, say hello, introduce, what's your latest book?
Hello, I'm George Mann. My latest book is, I guess, Tales of Light and Life, the new anthology. It's just come out.
Nice.
My name is Charles Soule. My latest High Republic thing is also Tales of Light and Life, but I'm also writing the Star Wars mainline comic and doing a lot of other Star Wars stuff too.
Hi, I'm Cavan Scott. My latest book has been Path of Vengeance for the High Republic. My next one's Tales of the Light of Life and Tales from the Death Star as well, coming soon.
Hi, my name is Justina Ireland. My latest Star Wars book was the Santa Staros mini, and my latest High Republic will be the Tales of Light.
So we'll start with the High Republic, obviously, because that's what we're here for. We're still a ways away from the end, but it is in sight. For all of you, especially those of you that have been on since the beginning, what's that feeling like, knowing that, a date has been set for the last book?
Senioritis, right? Like, so when you're like in your senior year of high school and you're like, I can see the end, the future is there. That's how it feels. It feels like all the things we've worked really hard for are finally coming to pay off.
Yeah, exactly. And it's that sense of like, can't quite believe we've got to that point already, but it also seems like we've been doing it forever.
It's been 87 years.
It does not feel particularly close to me because I have a whole book to write before I'm at that point. If anything, the start of writing that book is feeling like it's looming. It's all very like nerve-wracking and so on for me. But it'll be fun when it's done.
For me, it's just excitement being able to play with those Phase 1 characters, because coming in, I did a few bits and bobs for Phase 1, did a lot of work for Phase 2, and now I'm getting my hands on Ava and Elzar and things like that, so that's great.
Yeah, and coming into Phase 3 now, it's been a little while since we last saw the Phase 1 characters. What was it like to go back to them and start revisiting them, start writing them again?
I mean, it's kind of like coming home in a lot of ways. It was, we've missed those characters. We've been wanting to get back to, and no matter how much I love the Phase 2 characters and the Phase 2 era, that plays a big part in Phase 3 as well. It was like coming back to that core group of people that I'd been writing for in the Marvel comic, that crew. That felt like coming home.
Yeah,
agreed.
It feels like there's unfinished business, and getting a chance to go back to them and complete the story arcs that we've been talking about these things, these stories for years, and now that we get to actually write those words and have those things happen it's just awesome. It feels great.
Yeah, and it's just a case for me of wanting to do justice to those characters, make sure that what I'm writing in Eye of Darkness reflects the story that these guys wanted, but also bringing a bit of myself to it as well, and making sure that the characters, the journey they're on is feels right to the readers as well.
Nice.
Yes, and for me it's mostly about when we first wrote those books for Phase 1, we were the only ones who knew the characters. We were the only ones who really had to be careful of them and their arcs. And now there's so many other people who love those characters. I feel like an extra layer of responsibility because we've broken so many hearts, killed so many favorites. And so I was like, oh, I gotta take care of our babies because, they're not just mine anymore. They're not just our babies anymore. They're everyone's who loves the High Republic.
And they've literally grown up.
And they've literally grown up.
Yeah, does that create a new level of pressure for you, knowing that there is such a robust High Republic fandom that now you're coming back to these characters that, like you said, people love now, and there's a whole other level of people have been thinking about them for a year, not just you guys.
I think we felt that from the first celebration we did after
absolutely.
when we did that amazing panel with 4,000 people sitting there. We had no idea there were that many people because we had lights in our face, and when the lights went off and we saw it. It was, there was certainly, it's daunting, but also there was a level of excitement there because you realise that, hang on, this matters. This, people are invested in this, and so that was exciting. It energised in a way that, because we launched this in a vacuum.
Yeah, we launched it during the pandemic.
Right. January 2021.
Yeah.
I remember very clearly the way we all talked about it amongst ourselves during that celebration, being like, holy cow, this is really, we did something. We didn't really understand it, and then we did understand it, and then that's when some of the expectations start to set in. And I think it's more about expectations for ourselves than it is fan expectations necessarily. Like we're trying to do the best possible job we can to live up to the way people felt about the things we already did. So what a wonderful problem to have.
Yeah, definitely a good problem to have. I was at the Celebration London High Republic panel. That was a great time. What was it like to be on stage for that one?
I think it was my first experience of kind of what those guys had at that previous one. Really, it's like Beatlemania.
Yeah,
in the best possible way. It's like feeling like what you're, like Cav said, it's what you're doing matters to people, which does put a bit of weight on, but in a good way, in a way that makes you kind of go, well, okay, I'm going to pay close attention to what I'm writing, and I'm going to make sure I get it right because it matters not just to me as the writer, but to the people who care about it as much as we do.
Which of us is Ringo? That's what I want to know.
I think you've always been
Ringo. I am all Ringo.
You asked the question. I think that answers.
I love Ringo. I mean, who doesn't love Ringo?
Exactly.
I mean, who doesn't?
Lovely. So, looking ahead at Phase 3. Again, can you talk a little bit about how you're going to incorporate, again, without giving away spoilers, but how you're going to incorporate what we've learned in Phase 2 with what we know from Phase 1 and bringing those characters and those important storylines from Phase 1 and Phase 2 together?
Hang on a minute. Mike, can we say? No, there we go.
Question answered.
I think the important thing is that it matters. What happened back then matters now. And the repercussions of that are going to be felt.
And it matters in the way that Star Wars is really good at, which is that Star Wars is a living history where things flow sort of naturally from one thing that happens into the next thing. It all feels like this is how it would have gone. It doesn't feel necessarily like plotty. It feels like mythology where this is just what happens. And I think when you think about Phase 2 and Phase 1 and Phase 3, and when you see it all laid out together, it's going to feel like that. Like this is the history of this time. There's a reason we chose these elements to highlight and show in the story, but it's all going to feel like one big story when all said and done.
And in Star Wars, no one is really gone.
Yeah.
Except Stellan Geos.
He's never coming back. When you guys are writing something that's in this fresh era, that's completely on its own, how much thought are you putting into stuff where you're like, oh, that could be a story that someone else could tell someday? Like when you do include little details going, I hope someone picks up on that, or I hope I get to pick up on that at some point?
Yeah, because I think to make a world feel lived in, you have to have unanswered and unexplored story, right? Like we don't know everything even though we think we do, right? And the internet doesn't even know everything even though it thinks it does. And so I think it's really important to have like these moments where like somebody's referenced or mentioned, or you meet a character and you're like, oh, I wonder where they go after the scene. And I think because one of the things that Star Wars has been so great about is like taking a character that seems like a very unimportant minor character and all of a sudden like they have a much bigger story arc. And so for me, it's like I love the small moments because I feel like the small moments make the big moments feel more authentic.
Yeah, and I think It's what we said right from the beginning, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It happened in Star Wars, you know, when Obi-Wan's sitting there talking about the Clone Wars, you're like, the what now?
Yeah.
And then now we know what that is. And we definitely wanted to leave those breadcrumbs. I mean, I know personally, I just put words in to see, you know, if someone will pick them up or whether it's something I can return to. And we've done it with each other. I mean, Lorna's probably one of the examples. You put Lorna into Light of the Jedi, and we didn't really know what her story was at that point, you know, and I would sort of be taking her on and leading forward with her. So it's been part of what we do as a team from the off, you know, and because we trust each other as well, and we've worked with each other for a long time now, you know, we know that, oh, that's something that Justina will run with, or Tessa will run with, or, you know, or that's a Claudia moment. So it's there built into it, really.
And can you talk a little bit more about like kind of the collaborative process for all of you and how you went about, I mean, we've heard the story of how you went about constructing it. We saw that whiteboard in the original video with
one of the whiteboards.
One of the whiteboards,
yeah.
One of many whiteboards. Yeah. But as the project has evolved and grown and spun off in interesting and exciting ways, can you talk about how you've maintained that collaboration between each other?
Well, we have a Slack.
Very straightforward answer, yeah.
So we talk a lot. We also have a very open line of communication between all of us. We're all able, you know, to text each other and call each other and talk things through, and we kind of make a point of it so that if we're working with somebody like somebody else's characters, which is in big air quotes, we take, you know, we discuss it. You know, it's something where we all know we're part of a team, and we're fortunate that we can work together as well as we do. And I think it really speaks for itself. The way that, like, I recently read through like pretty much all of everything, and the way that that's been out to date, and the way that it all connects in like the tiniest little ways is unbelievable. And I think we just decided to do it. So it's great.
Yeah, and we work back as well. We kind of, so if we know like Charles is writing something that's touching on the characters that I'm writing or events that I'm writing about, we'll talk about it and say, how can we set things up for each other? You know, what do I need to put in this book that's going to make your story feel more connected or work better? And that's across the board. So we have those discussions, and you know, usually we'll go back to what we're writing and put those links in to make sure it's joining up.
And sometimes the moments when you have a clash is when the magic really happens. So there's been times where someone...
Like Path of the Sea. I said you had to see. You're like, could you change the second half of the book? I'm like, I don't want that. What is wrong?
But you get moments where like someone will pop out, like Daniel will pop up and say, is it right if I put this on Valo? And you go, no! But then you go, okay, right, if you do that, how does this work? And you know, and I mean, one of the examples right back at the beginning, that there were two characters that became Ava, because there were two characters that were working along the same route, and then we suddenly went, well, why isn't it that person? And so it's those moments that you can't plan for, that's what makes this kind of rum experience so fulfilling.
Fantastic. Looking ahead and being, you know, conscious of Mike over here, not wanting to, not wanting to get.
A picture of Mike on our wall.
He sent it to us.
Yeah.
It's on the wall.
What was the Gleam say?
Is there somewhere in the High Republic books that have been published already that you think people should pay extra close attention to, that should maybe go back and have a look at if they want to really be ready for Phase 3?
It all matters. I think that's the thing that's hard to like explain. It's like even those small throwaway lines that people are like, yeah, whatever, that's just, you know, I don't like that character, they're annoying, why do they keep popping up? And then you're gonna see them again. And so I think that's I think people get used to things feeling like they're random, but nothing is random in the High Republic. Everything that's on the page we have planned. And if we didn't plan it, then somebody else is like, oh, this gives me an answer to a problem I have. So, I mean, like one of the things that's great about Phase 3 is you can go back and find the characters that didn't get the moments in Phase 1, right? And say like, okay, how do I use these characters in new ways? So that's my advice, is like, if you've read everything, then you're gonna be, you know, well prepared. If you've skipped some things, you might be like, where did this happen? But it's fine, we'll catch you up on the story you're reading.
Yeah, and I think it's also, if I go back to my previous Star Wars work from before the High Republic, the stuff we were writing when we were starting to build, and there are still things in there that you might not have realised are linked to the High Republic. And again, that's not something to beat people who haven't realised it's a treat. It's like a reward. So when you go back and re-listen to, for example, Dooku Jedi Lost, you start going, oh, hang on, I didn't realise that name meant this. Or like the Treasury, the Life Day Treasury, or or the Star Wars main run. It's everything we've done. There are little seeds to things that have been and are yet to come.
Yeah, because Star Wars, obviously we're working in this High Republic space, but you can't do it in isolation. It exists within the Star Wars mythology and the Star Wars universe. So those threads are always going to be important that reach out beyond, or like forward or backwards from the era that we're writing.
So, Kevin, I'll throw a question at you because you've written the audio dramas, and you mentioned Dooku Jedi Lost. What is it like to then hear some of these character voices, and for all of you as well, to hear the characters actually as performers as opposed to just words on a page?
Well, I mean, so it's incredible, but we hear that through the person of Mark Tollins quite a lot. Let's face it, in the audiobooks. I mean, for all of us, when we heard those first books, to actually hear the characters speak.
I got goosebumps when he did it today.
I know.
It's unbelievable. It's a magic trick.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
But it's all part of the collaboration that's built into this project. So when you write for anything, whether it's audio drama, whether it's comics, whether it's TV, you're giving something over to someone else to interpret, and that's the joy of what we do. And it's the same whether it's a character moving from a book or a comic into something else, or hearing an actor perform it.
Just use your house keys.
Yeah, exactly. We'll get those in a minute. Thank you. That's the joy of this, because there's always something you don't know is going to happen. Is whether it's an interpretation or I remember hearing the first from a certain point of view story I did with Obi-Wan. The Force scene suddenly played, and suddenly I had tears in my eyes because it's that thing. It's like it's the goosebumps. It's the emotion that's wrapped up. So. There's always something you've got to learn about your own characters, and that's usually from other people.
Amazing. Well, I want to be respectful of your time. I know there's other folks waiting to chat with all of you, so I'll thank you all very much and enjoy the rest of your Comic-Con.
Thank you. Take care. Huge thank you to the High Republic authors George Mann, Charles Sewell, Kevin Scott, Justina Ireland for that. Oh, we got Old Men Band back.
You guys still doing a podcast? This thing's still running?
Of course, again, Eye of Darkness hits shelves next week, and Shadows of Starlight 1 and 2 are out now, as is High Republic #1. The Phase 3 relaunch. And one thing I'll just note about that interview, Kevin Scott in there, right at the end, he mentions, the characters moving to television. And at the time, I thought he was just being coy because of the strikes and not mentioning the fact that Vernestra Rowe is going to be in The Acolyte. But lo and behold, we find out subsequently that Kevin actually wrote some episodes of Young Jedi Adventures. And you see Stellan Gios and Bell Zettifar, who are big characters. Not Stellan Gios, excuse me. He has Loden Greatstorm and Bell Zettifar, who are big important characters in the High Republic books, have shown up in that series. And if you've read those books and you have children, don't tell them what happens to those characters. That will make them sad. But yeah, that was a lot of fun. I have some more content from Comic-Con that will drop over the next couple of weeks, including, if you look in the background, if you're watching that, you can see Alex and Molly Damon from Star Wars Explained setting up for an interview with E.K. Johnston. I also have an interview with E.K. Johnston that you will hear and see in the coming weeks here on this show. And fun fact, after we finished that interview, myself and the authors, we went to go take some pictures in front of the San Diego Comic-Con backdrop, and we were having so much fun, we disrupted Alex's interview with E.K. Johnston. So I don't know if he cut that out or if that's still in there, but we definitely caused a problem for Star Wars Explained. So I did apologize to him at the bar later that night. Oh, good times. All right. That's going to do it. I think we've reached that point in the show where it's time to say goodbye, but it's not goodbye for long. It's not going to be another 5 months. We'll be back next week, right? Right?
Unless there's another strike. Good night, but not goodbye. That is the point that we're at. All right. Thank you everybody so much for watching. Thank you for still being here. I was wondering if you'd still be here. You're still here.
It's been so nice in the live chat to see so many familiar names popping up. It was so nice to see so many familiar names in all of the Ask SWU questions, and it was actually also nice to see some unfamiliar names who were just excited that we were back too. So I was like, all right, big Star Wars Underworld family group hug, amazing.
Yes, heck yes, so excited for that. Of course, we'll be back with another show, same time, same place, finally next week, and that time is at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific on Thursday nights, and that place is on YouTube, also simulcasting on all of our other social media as well, so formerly known as Twitter, Twitch, and Facebook. We also have streams up there. For some reason, you don't want to go over to YouTube. It's over there. It's over there too. But YouTube is definitely the place that we want to encourage you guys to punch that subscribe button. And huge thanks to everybody who super chatted with us tonight. And of course, huge thanks to all of our channel members who make this all possible. Dominic, thank you so much for hosting and still being here.
Yes. Oh, it was such a great time, such a great show. It was just a thrill to be back, and I miss this so much. There was a brief moment here where we were considering not, delaying our return until next week. And if you've listened or watched to this point, you've seen the technical issues. You've seen us stumble over our words a little bit more than usual and all that stuff. And maybe if we'd taken another week, we would have been a little bit more polished. But who cares? I was so ready to come back, and it feels like everybody felt the same way. And I'm glad we did, and I'm glad we're going to be back again next week, and the week after that, and the week after that, and the week after that, for at least the length of these 3-year contracts that have been signed with the guilds. We don't have contracts here; it's just contracts of friendship. Yeah, what a time, what a show! Cannot wait to do all this again in 7 days' time.
And of course, you can follow Dominic on social media at DominicJ25. So, Benjamin, the Star Wars gentleman, thank you for gracing us with your presence this evening.
We better have a show next week. I clearly can't deal with these breaks, okay? I clearly can't. It's not good for my mental health, okay? So we better have a show next week.
Oh my god!
And don't follow me anywhere on social media. If I catch you following me, I'll whack you upside your head.
But if you would enjoy a whacking at Fanart with no E,
I had to make it weird.
You can follow me at Seekell on. I don't use social media anymore. Never mind. And of course, a huge shout out to Hannah as well for joining us earlier in the stream. And you can follow her at the Raeside, and make sure you check out her YouTube channel at the Raeside. There we go. And check out all the other shows on Star Wars Underworld Network, including Ion Cannon, which is on this channel, and Tractor Beam, which is on this channel, as well as Tales from Beyond the Galaxy, and more. And don't forget, after you follow us on social media at the SWU, head over to the Star Wars Underworld Network Discord for continued discussion and fun throughout the week. Just because we're back here doesn't mean that there's not going to be more great stuff over on Discord. We want to continue with the momentum of great community engagement we've had over there over the past few months. So definitely click the link in the description to get that invite link to our Discord server, the Star Wars Underworld Network Discord. Check that out. So that is it. We are out of here. For Hannah and Ben and Dominic, my name is Chris, and may the Force be with you. I remembered how to end the show. Yay.
Nailed it.
I'm like, what do I say? Oh, yeah.
It's a wrap.